Oh, all right.
Another season is upon us. Freshmen arrive wide-eyed with dreams of future glory, while seniors prepare for their last chance at immortality. There are only a handful of these opportunities in a man's life, a handful of chances to distinguish yourself from the rest. It's on these fields where history is made, where legends begin and heroes triumph. Traditions tell the story of what you represent, of those that forge the legacy you uphold. When you come charging out of the tunnel, 100,000 people will be watching your every move. How you respond to that pressure is what defines you. These are the moments that reveal your toughness, your determination, and your pride. The Roughnecks on the Sooner Schooner. Ralphie charging out of the gate. And Chief Osceola planting his spear. The time has come. Your time is now.
Hello and welcome everybody to College Football Red Zone, your source for seeing the college football world covered in a way that has never been experienced before. And you know what else? I am not only going to be doing this solo, it's not going to be just one on the stream tonight. What? It's not going to be just two on the stream tonight. What? But I got three folks on the stream here tonight. I am joined by both the commish, the man, the myth, the commish in Headgear Insights. Welcome to the show, as well as someone who you might be a little bit more familiar with because I've hopped on their show a couple of times. It's like a G5 actually getting a power conference team in their own home stadium. It's Chris from College Football Season. How you both doing tonight, boys?
Man, I'm so excited to be here. So excited to kick off this live stream and this fantasy football draft. This is how we know that college football is back.
Yeah, I'm excited. It's going to be a lot of fun. I've done a lot of NFL drafts. I have not done a college football draft in a very, very long time.
Yeah, and it's really interesting, talking right before like the show started. We all seem to have experience actually doing like NFL like fantasy football over the years. Certainly more popular than what we've seen from like the collegiate athletics side of things. I don't know about you guys, but this is the first time that I've seen like a college fantasy football league physically put together, which I'm going to go ahead and swing it back over to the man, the myth, and the commish himself, man. Man, how'd you even find this place, man? Is it like the doldrums of the internet? Like, did you have to do some dark web searching? How'd you even find this place, my guy?
Well, my journey with college fantasy football started actually back in 2019. First year was playing in a family league on Yahoo Sports. And then, through COVID, life got in the way, had to take a couple year hiatus. And then once I got back into the action, rekindled the league with the friends and family. And that's where we found Fantrax. And so I've been playing fantasy football for, my fourth or fifth year. You can see actually the small national championship trophy up here is our national championship trophy for my home league there. So proud winner, proud national champion. this past year, and so I'm excited to show that off and wanted to extend the fun to a lot of guys who know college football and wanted to get in on the action with college fantasy football.
Yeah, and it's funny that you bring up those national championship trophies in the background because as you can see from the time of this video, it's just not like those of us that are actually physically on the stream, but it's many other like college football creators that cover what I would consider the greatest sport in the world, and it's not even close in my opinion. So 14 creators coming together. Surely, we got to get together and, get some type of trophy, whoever ends up holding that crystal ball at the end of the year for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we gotta come up with something crazy. But not only a trophy for the winner, but a punishment for the loser. For me, that's the best part right there.
Yeah, so surely we're not going to go with the what the one FSU fan like is going with in terms of like eating some poop. We don't need anybody's favorite team going 2-10. We don't need that kind of curse upon the on the college football world again.
No.
Now, Chris, I know like originally the plan was that you were going to be that head coach, but many of the things that we've seen in the modern college football world is you have your head coach that handles the day-to-day operations, but then you also have a general manager at some of these various programs around the country. Originally, your co-host was going to be drafting here tonight, and you were going to be that head coach trying to maximize the talent at your GM. But I know your GM had to step out in terms of, because of some live things happen. So was there any discussion in terms of any kind of strategy in terms of, putting together the best team possible with that 5th overall pick and there forward?
No, wasn't really any strategy talk exchange. He just said he was going to do it, and then he was all in it, and then the man does like 6 NFL fantasy drafts and leagues and dynasty leagues and all that. So he was like, man, I don't think I'll have the time. So he was like, you can just have it. Just let me know how it goes. So yeah, I said, all right, heck, I'll do it because I've kind of slimmed down on the NFL. I'm doing like only 2. I did like 5 or 6 last year, and it was way too much to try to keep up with. So I decided this year I was going to slim it down to 2 NFL leagues, and then I was like, well, I'll do 1 conference. So.
Yeah, I definitely hear you on terms of like the time management because me last year, like I didn't do as many like fantasy leagues as you did, but I was in like 3 to 4, and it is not even for from a time management standpoint. It's more of having a harder time keeping track of who's on my team or who's not on my team. So in one league I'd be like, oh, I got that guy, he just got a touchdown for me, that's great. But then I'm playing against him in 2 other leagues, so it's like. Yeah, so I definitely hear it on that. Definitely doing 1 more college league, probably over on Squad Blitz, and then doing some like a couple of like pro leagues, with family and as well as some close friends as well. So I mean, I definitely get that.
Yeah, I also do I was trying to find it, but I cannot find it. I text my wife to see if she knew where it was at, but I actually have a ring from our league. We do the ESPN college football pick'em. Yeah, we do like the confidence points and all that. Yeah, so we have a family league. It's like 11, 12 of us in it, and I've won it 4 years in a row. So I'm going for the 5th time. I've developed a little North Dakota State dynasty. So yeah, I was trying to find the ring, but apparently it's lost. I'm kind of devastated.
I was
That's an impressive win streak, though.
Yeah,
4 years in a row.
Yep, 4 years in a row. I'm kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy. I'm surprised that I won it that many times in a row, but the people in the group are definitely getting annoyed by it.
Yeah, it's almost turning into you just gotta be careful that you don't run into like a St. Thomas situation because they were essentially kicked out of their own conference because they were tired of losing to them all the time, and I mean they were able to parlay that into a trip straight into the Division I ranks. But just got to be careful out there. People get jealous and do some diabolical things sometimes.
What's funny about that is they all of a sudden now want to try NFL fantasy football. So I'm not quite that great at it. I did win the first time last year. I won a fantasy football league in the NFL. So we'll see if that strategy works out for him.
Yeah, I'm sure it was going to turn out like completely fine. I could see that definitely happening. Though, like, oh, getting tired of beating up on you all the time. They got to switch the game up. Getting tired of being beat by checkers. Got to switch it over to chess.
Yeah, for sure. One of the hardest things is that, like, everybody that I talk to is familiar with NFL fantasy, but not very many people know about college fantasy, even if they like the sport. And so, like, what I talked with you guys about is not only growing it with, creators and people who cover the sport, but trying to grow my home league. And it was hard to find people who wanted to invest the time into managing a college fantasy football when they don't know a lot about it.
Yeah, I can definitely like see that, which I'm so glad that we're able to all get together and do something like that, because it's not just us that's coming in here and doing like this fantasy draft here tonight. Got many others as you can see from top of your screen. William Cockrill over from Walk On Red Shirts is here. He's got the 12th overall, or not 12. I can't count. That's at Bluffton Education coming into play. Cockrell with the 14th pick. We got College Football Sam with the 13th pick. Free Tech Pod with the 12th. Garrett Armburst with the 11th. CFB Talk Daily with the 10th. CFB Budge with the 9th, as well as Press Box After Dark, the TFL. You guys obviously, and then of course Updog, TNT, and like Jake Crane from Crane and Company. So a lot of college football creators for sure. Mostly on the smaller side, but certainly a couple of bigger names in here that I'm excited to dominate and give them crap over the course of the year.
Yeah, I think it's a great league.
Is it the same? Like, so in I know in like fantasy draft in NFL, is it, a lot of times you try to pick your running back and receivers, pretty quick, and then quarterbacks are later on. Is it kind of similar to that?
Yeah, so I don't know if it's going to work out well for me, but I was going to go with the Bill Belichick approach and take some of my drafting concepts from the professional landscape and take it down here to the college. So what I'm probably going to try and do is probably load up on receivers and running backs, and then probably wait until how many picks we got? 20 picks. Probably wait at least in the second half before like getting a quarterback that I really want. Because I mean, we talked about it like in our group chat that we have over the course of the offseason. I mean, there's a lot of quality quarterbacks out there, and I mean that's definitely showed in terms of what we got for the draft board.
Yeah, I think that's my strategy.
Yeah, it seems like the same with fantasy football is not necessarily, who, but it's also paying attention to which types of players go on different runs in each draft. It's like one year there were 4 or 5 wide receivers that went off in the first round. And then another year it's 4 or 5 quarterbacks. And this year I feel like the consensus is that it's the running backs are heavy in the first round. So it's really a give and take with that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's really like the quintessential of letting the board talk to you as the wise man once say. I know that you're coming out here with the 6th overall pick, and I talked to Chris about it earlier. But is there a certain strategy? What type of player you're looking for in terms of building a culture within your fantasy college football program?
To be honest, I have not done as much preseason fantasy draft prep this year as I have in years past. And probably for the advantage of a lot of other people who aren't familiar with fantasy football, college fantasy football. So it should help knowing my first, second,
Yeah, definitely. Like here on.
And possibly who I don't expect to.
Yeah, definitely. Like sounds good for sure. I'm with you as well. You know, I haven't done any like kind of like mock drafts like going into this thing. I am going to be quintessentially at the mercy of the fan track like draft board, and it's just probably going to go off of that as well as a little bit of gut. We got 20 players that we're going to end up having at the end of the day, so might throw some meme picks in there. Maybe throw in Zachariah Branch. I don't know where he's ranked on the board, but I got to get my deep dark horse contender for Heisman on my team somehow, man. Definitely got to go ahead and make that happen. Even though I'm looking right now, I have no idea where he falls on this board. So we'll see if that works out for us or not. But yeah, we while we still have a little bit of time, definitely want to hear from the audience any burning questions you guys have in terms of college football, because we have 20 days. We have 20 days until the season is officially here, because on this channel we recognize week 0 as the start of the season. I'm not going to name names, but there are some names out there that only recognize week 1 when we have meaningful college football played in week 0, and I will not stand for it. but in the meantime, last year we saw one of the biggest surprises in all of college football last season in Indiana, under the first year of Kurt Cignetti, take his team to the college football playoff after years of just frustration for Indiana football. So wanted to like switch it back over to you guys for a moment. In terms of, is there a team out there that you feel like could pull off what Indiana pulled off last year and just make the college football playoff literally from nowhere? Is there any programs out there that kind of stick out in your mind as, we're closing in on the start of the season?
Oh man, I was trying to think. Come out of nowhere. Couldn't really think of anybody, so I don't know if the team I'm gonna say is gonna qualify as a surprise. Well, I guess it would probably be a surprise, as in nobody's expecting this team to make the playoff this year, but they've been to the playoff. They actually played for a national championship. But Washington is a team this year that I'm really high on. That a lot of people doesn't seem to be as high as I am. I'm talking potential playoff sleeper. That quarterback Williams Jr. I know he played in, I think, 2 games. I mean, he played in a lot more than that, but he started like the last 2 games or whatever. But he was really impressive with me. And then Boston, the wide receiver, and the running back Coleman. I really like that trio. And I don't know. It's definitely not like a Indiana situation where they haven't had success ever. They've had some success in Washington, but they've been down a couple years since the war left. So I really do like that team a lot. To surprise people.
Yeah, and I'm actually remember watching like Damon Williams like play in the bowl game against Louisville, I believe. And while they did end up losing in that bowl game, I remember watching him play, and someone that certainly provides Washington, I think, with a higher ceiling, and someone definitely like capable. Especially, in the Big Ten, getting that Big Ten sticker on your chest, you're going to be afforded, I think, a little bit more of a benefit of the doubt than, say, a team that is in the ACC or in the Big 12. As much as I don't really love that, but at the same time, that's just the nature of the business. I think this Washington team certainly does have the upside in terms of being at least in the conversation. I have them as their upside being like around that 9-3 or even 10-2 if they're able to pull off one of the bigger upsets of the year. They do have Ohio State coming to their building, which certainly doesn't hurt if you're going to play one of the best teams in the country. So, I mean, I definitely like see the vision. That's for sure in terms of Washington, like maybe making some noise and making the playoff for sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure if there's a team like Indiana this year where nobody's talking about them. I also can't get behind another repeat of Indiana because my personal opinion is that they got a very beneficial schedule, very nice schedule that set them up for success. And I'm not sure if there's another team out there with that type of schedule in 2025.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I could certainly see that too. And Kirk Cignetti, he talked a big game at his first like media day. Talking about they need to Google him, and he certainly lived up to it. And honestly, I think you could have made the case last year that Indiana was a top 5 team last year, because you think about who the 2 losses that they had last year. They lost to Ohio State, obviously, who ended up going on and winning the national championship. But then they also lost to Notre Dame, and yes, in the first round of the college football playoff. But Notre Dame, they also went to the national championship game and actually pushed Ohio State to like a 1-possession game. They get a stop on 4th down, and maybe you avoid, I don't know, not going 1-on-1 against Jeremiah Smith in press coverage. It's if I saw that in CFB 25, go route every single time. You know what I'm saying? But those are 2 teams that ended up playing in the national championship game, and those are Indiana's 2 only losses. So you can certainly make the case, especially with how dominant they were in those in most of the games that they played in last year, that they could have actually been a top 5 team. But obviously they ran into Notre Dame, and Notre Dame got hot at the right time. And I know, Chris, you found that out the hard way, seeing what they did to your poor Georgia Bulldogs.
Devastating. Yeah. Notre Dame, that was such a good team last year. Never seen as a Georgia fan, wasn't used to seeing a team out physical and really out coach us. And Marcus Freeman, all credit to him and Notre Dame. They out coached us, out physicaled us, and they won. And I thought he was a genius that day, Freeman, especially with that. I think it was like a punt thing, or where he switched some things up, got Georgia to call a timeout or something like that. I can't remember. It was a penalty or something. The game's kind of foggy. I'm trying to forget it still.
Yeah, I think compared to where they finished at the end of the season, I think Notre Dame earned a lot of people's respect and were a team that proved a lot of people wrong. I mean, I think a lot of people pegged them for a potential playoff team entering 2024, but they might have been a team that snuck in under the radar, especially compared to a team that went to the national championship game.
Yeah, and like going back to what Chris was saying, Notre Dame is certainly a program that's they have a little bit of a soft spot in my heart personally with Marcus Freeman. Actually, he went to my high school, so he's from my hometown. So I know like a lot of folks around where I live. They're Ohio State fans, and some of them are certainly diehard Ohio State fans. But there's a fair number of them that will pull for Notre Dame outside of that Ohio State matchup, just because of that that hometown love that he has. But one team that I'm definitely interested in, I think, going into this season, I think could certainly make a playoff run that just could pull off what Indiana pulled off last year. I'm thinking North Carolina. I think is that team. You bring yourself a head coach like Bill Belichick that certainly knows how to win at the NFL level. He has almost as many Super Bowl rings as my man has fingers on his hand. Like that's some crazy work first and foremost. But then you take a look at their schedule, and I know many of the bigger pundits already talked about this, but at the same time, I think North Carolina genuinely has one of the easiest schedules in all of college football this fall, right? I don't have their schedule right in front of me. I'm going to see if I can find it. I know that the one tough game that they have is Clemson. And I think all 3 of us can agree, probably not beating Clemson. Okay. But if you take a look at all the other games that they have on their schedule, well, I don't think they're going to win all of their remaining games. You can make an argument outside of the Clemson game that it's certainly winnable, right? And so if you get to 11-1 and yes, probably not going to be Clemson, like I mentioned, but let's say you're competitive with the Clemson Tigers and you finish 11-1. I mean, you could pull off an SMU and like maybe sneak in as like your 10 or 11 seed, even though maybe that strength of schedule doesn't necessarily match up at the same time.
Yeah, their week 1 game versus TCU is a game that I'm very excited to see because, kind of like Dion last year, the year before, Bill Belichick, especially with his girlfriend, is a coach that a lot of people are talking about. And so I'm excited to put some of these questions to rest, some of these, answer some of these questions.
Yeah, I'm very excited, and it's a standalone game if I'm not mistaken too. I believe that we are going to see them on a Monday night if I'm not mistaken. Yeah,
That's
yeah, so
correct.
that'll be a
Yeah.
standalone game, and going to be a lot of eyeballs on Bill Belichick's like coaching debut for sure. But before I go into that point a little bit more, we got some smack talk that we got to address. Jake Crane with the audacity to come here on the stream and try to say that he's going to have fun winning this league this year. First of all, the national championship winner of this fantasy league, he's saying in this stream, all right, don't know if it's going to be me, but it is my show. So
hey, somebody's got to walk away the winner. So
Jake used to coach football, so kind of nervous. He's got a little advantage there.
Yeah. So I mean, listen. I might even go. I don't know how many regular season games that we have. Is it like we have like 12 games? Is it a 12-game regular
I believe
season?
we have. It's an 11-game regular season, and then 3 weeks for the playoff. Playoffs start week 12, and then it's the top 6 teams get into the playoff, and 1 and 2 seeds get a first-round bye.
All right, so we're not jumping from like 4-team playoffs directly to to a 12-team playoff. We're doing a more reasonable approach and like going with 6 teams instead.
Yeah, that's in my experience playing fantasy, 6-team playoff is my favorite. I've played it to where only 4 teams get in, and I've had guys just like the actual CFP sitting just outside the edge get frustrated. And then I've played with a actual 12-team playoff to where everybody in the league gets in the playoff. And just like the 12-team CFP, I think that is a more frustrating playoff scenario than anything else.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, like when it comes to fantasy leagues, it definitely depends on the league size in terms of how big of a playoff you want to have. So I've sat in like 18 leagues when in my younger days back when I don't have to like think about stretching or all that where like for an 18 league, I'm definitely cool with like a 14 playoff. But, when you start getting into that neighborhood of like 14, 16, or even 1 year, I was a complete sicko and, sat in a 20-team league 1 year. I'm definitely, more in the camp of, getting to like 6 or 8. I think 8 max is really what I would do personally. But yeah, I can't get behind, everybody making it in. That's essentially giving everybody a participation trophy. And, we're not about that here. Like, I'm sorry, like a 2-10 team does not belong in the same playoff format as a 11-1 team that's actually earned it on the field, so to speak. That's crazy.
And to make that even worse, that year that we had to do it that way, I was the team that was 11-1 and either the first or second overall seed. And the first round of the playoffs, I lost to the 2-10 team.
Oh no!
And that was just miserable. I had to sit with that all off season, and that was in 2023, I believe. And so when we came back for 2024, like that was my revenge season.
Oh man, it's that's one of those like you just got to go ahead and we got started with the draft. I got to make a pick there. Yeah, that's just those moments where you just got to go ahead. You got to turn off the the group chat, mute those notifications, and just kind of be like Aaron Rodgers one off season and instead of seclusion to think about what you did. But man, we got the first overall pick. A lot of pressure with the first overall pick. Thank you, Kamish, for bestowing me this opportunity. But I don't think I'm going to mess around like too much here. Definitely want to go with someone that I genuinely do believe is the best receiver in college football, and something I want to do is load up on receivers and running backs for sure in the early going. I'm going with Jeremiah Smith. He's my guy at the end of the day, and it's going to be so enjoyable. Yes, there's a new quarterback, but we know Jeremiah Smith's going to get his. Come on now.
Yeah, I think that was the obvious pick. Oh, Jake J-Boy made a quick pick.
See Jake taking Ryan Williams overall. That's another solid pick.
Yeah.
Yeah, Betty wish he had Jeremiah Smith, though.
Who knew what he wanted?
He knew exactly who he wanted. Jeremiah Smith went there. He went right to Ryan Williams, which is a smart pick.
Yeah, listen, like he had him queued up from the get-go. I know like this is gonna run through because I know TNT can't get on here tonight. Because I know he's got some very exciting stuff happening off the field. So we're very, very excited for him and his family. So who we think the auto draft is gonna pick up for? My money says Desmond Reed's gonna be the receiver.
Actually, I just said that, and so yeah. There you go, Reed, Washington.
All right, so CFB Budge has made his spots clear on the first couple of picks. We got 2 bus receivers, sadly. Budge, you wanna expand on that, big fella?
Budge, you got to the last time a Ohio State wide receiver won was a bus, because I can't think of that.
Well, I mean, listen, there's a good reason why Ohio State is a wide receiver. You in my opinion. Ted Hurst clears apparently. Though from Georgia State, he'll be fun to watch for those that are Sun Belt sickos for sure. Like the Jeremiah Smith pick, by the way,
or Jeremiah Love.
Jeremiah Love.
Yep.
Yeah,
This is a guy who's going to finish wide receiver 1 over Ryan Williams, over Jeremiah Smith. Give me Jordan Tyson.
I love it.
Listen, I love that Arizona State team this year. I think they have what it takes. Genuinely, I think they can go undefeated this year. Like I'm very high on Arizona State and their returning production.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what's crazy though is, regardless of how confident you are about your preseason Big 12 picks, just like Arizona State came up last year, it could be whoever team you put in 10th overall could win the conference. And that's what I love about the Big 12.
Yeah, and I mean, it's certainly not a conference that I think is going to produce a national champion this year. I don't think anyone is capable of doing that, but it is the most competitively balanced conference, I think, at least among the Power Four, if not in all of college football. And, by default, that makes this the most entertaining conference to watch, which I'm very excited for, because you could basically just do a randomizer and I would understand.
Oh, absolutely. It's like when I'm trying to do preseason predictions for Utah, they could be in a scenario where they win the conference, or they could be in another scenario to where they win only 4 or 5 games.
Yeah, I can definitely see that for Utah. And I published my Big 12 predictions here on YouTube last week, and Utah was one of the those volatile teams that I have in the Big 12. Seeing a team that if everything goes right at the quarterback position, could absolutely go and win 11 games and be in that championship hunt. But if Dampier can't adjust to power level competition, I could see them also scraping by and barely making a bowl game too. It makes the prediction game so much fun, is because you truly never know what's going to happen.
Yeah. And like you talked about with Dampier at Utah, I mean, I don't think I could count the number of programs who have a new quarterback this year where so much hinges on what they'll be able to do for their offense and for their team.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think this is what's going to make this year like extremely fun. In particular, just seeing how open it is. Even last year, and I will say 2 years ago when I really started at least like paying more attention, like in terms of a national level of things, is last year and 2 years ago there was like one or three teams that you felt really confident that they're going to make a deep run and win the national championship. But then like this year, I'm looking at my list. You could make a genuine case for probably like at least like 6 to 8 teams. Like it's going to be really fun to see how the season plays out.
Absolutely. And I know I just want to add too that William, he's a Clemson grad and former player there, and so I bet he's a little frustrated that Sam was able to snipe Williams right before him.
Yeah, because I know in the chat, like he was mentioning that he was gonna just take like Clemson players. That was what his entire team was going to be made of. Although the bye weeks would be a little challenging. So I know there's a little bit of frustration seething in the chat right now.
And even more surprised too that with those back-to-back picks there at the turn, he didn't even take a single Clemson player. Maybe specifically Klubnik at quarterback, but maybe the method is to punt at quarterback, wait a little bit.
Yeah, maybe that. I don't know. I mean, maybe he is an experienced like fantasy player as well, and is maybe looking towards later rounds to get themselves a quarterback. I could definitely see that happening.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of great running backs taken off the board. I know I mentioned teams with hopes at quarterback, but talk about Joyner at Texas Tech. I'm really excited to see what he could do.
Yeah, and I'm really excited for Texas Tech in general. Bringing in the second best like portal class in America, and I think Texas Tech, is really starting to get to a point where like they're starting to get to a point where their roster is deep enough to be a national championship contender. Maybe not this year, but definitely could be the case where this time next year we are talking about Texas Tech as a national contender because of the additional resources that they poured into their program. As the picks are flying by, good Lord.
Yeah, that's good though.
Oh, absolutely.
But yeah,
the worst part about it is and on top of the picks flying by, the worst part about it is playing with a lot of knowledgeable college football analysts is picks like Hankerson or Henderson are not flying under the radar.
No.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's very interesting because we've seen one dark horse team that I think that we've been talking about like in terms of like the college football media space since like March or April, for example, is like San Jose State. I know they're like a dark horse contender to really make some noise in the Mountain West and possibly be that G5 like representative. But like the more casual fans that are just now tuning in because college football season is right around the corner, they're just now starting to get hit with like San Jose State. It's just very interesting to see the difference between me and you and the rest of the general college football public for sure. Yeah,
it's definitely getting. At least on receivers, I know Slim Pickens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like I've got my first top tier guys of receivers, and then after that, it's just you got to figure out who's your guy and who you want to take a gamble on.
Yeah,
it's where.
Oh,
man, Lenore Sellers, man, I love that pick because I know
my number one right.
man, because I know like Nora Sellers, like I know like I think your co-host had actually like dropped this comment in earlier. Best quarterback with rush upside. Some people was thinking like Sellers, Pavia, or Avery Johnson. Man, Sellers is just such a special player. I watched him specifically in the Clemson game, and that kid is special. And if he actually played the entire LSU game, they're beating LSU convincingly too. I'm very excited to see if he can remain healthy for a whole year, what he can accomplish this season.
I guess I'm gonna be the one to do it. But there it is.
Arch Manning.
It's crazy seeing how high. Yeah, I'd rather take a guy that was a sure thing in Sellers, and after seeing Klubnik come off the board, I was just afraid that we were going to go on a quarterback run, and so I couldn't let a top-tier quarterback let him pass him up.
Listen, I'm not even worried about it though. There's a lot of good quarterbacks. I'm just waiting till my time. We're staying patient.
Oh, absolutely. And I think there are even quarterbacks who might fall until the 7th, 8th round, even that might be tier 3, tier 4, tier 5 quarterbacks. And without naming names, I think those guys are very, very underrated.
Yeah. Pac-Man, I do see your your comment in terms of who's up right now. So Jay Crane over in Crane and Company, he's actually up at the moment. He's getting ready to make his second round pick shortly. Not as quick as his first round selection. That took like a few seconds, but but then I'll be up next. So I'll be able to make my second and third pick. If you're watching Pac-Man's Army, but yeah, man, my boy Jay Crane, like he's taking his time. It's definitely he's not as sure as he the first pick. Oh my God, he's still there. He took him a tier. That's interesting. I'm so excited to pick this particular person up. Ahmad Hardy, who just transferred in from Georgia State. He's up in Missouri. I really like him, and I think he's going to be really important for that Missouri offense if they're going to reach that upside with brand new quarterback. And then in terms of who else I want to go with, man, a lot of good options available.
Ooh.
Oh man, he's got a really good quarterback up there to see in Josh Hoover. Let me go ahead. Let me grab his top target in Eric McAllister to pair up with the number one receiver in college football, Jeremiah Smith. Oh, ULM. My bad, bud. I'm not as we got a tight end going, Stowers.
Wow, Stover.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
I really do like Ted Hurst, though. I think he's going to do some good things down in the Sun Belt.
Oh.
But I appreciate the correction. So Ahmad Hardy, the Missouri running back who I took, he's actually from Louisiana Monroe, not from Georgia State. I knew he was from the Sun Belt, but we done goofed that one for sure. But still very happy to have him on the team regardless.
I think you also might have gotten confused because last year Missouri also took a G5 running back, and that was Carroll from Georgia State. And so they've been able to bring up guys from smaller schools to play for them.
Yeah, I mean it's hard, especially nowadays, to be a G5. Just because you do develop these guys, for a year or two, and then they exceed their expectations from maybe what their high school ranking says, and you end up not being able to keep them because these bigger schools do have more resources from in terms of the NIL landscape. So yeah, definitely a tough time to be a G5 right now. Pac-Man. So this comment from Pac-Man is really interesting. Absolutely. I want to hear your thoughts on this. So Toledo is about to go 7-5 this season, the most overrated team in the country. I think Toledo is going to be a little bit better than 7-5, but definitely want to hear what you guys think about the Toledo Rockets out of the beautiful land of action.
I'll be honest. I have not done any prep.
I'm trying to remember now who their quarterback is.
Yeah, I haven't done any prep on Toledo this year yet. We're supposed to have a show doing our G5 stuff, so I haven't started that work yet, so I don't know much about them.
Yeah, well, so I have so some of mine like more in-depth knowledge of Toledo does come from CFB 26 because Chris knows I'm certainly a gamer. I know you're a gamer as well. They got a fast receiver in Junior Vanderross that I love playing, but then I think like Tucker Gleason. Thank you for that reminder, bud. I think he's a very good quarterback in the MAC. Maybe not the best quarterback. I think you can make a case for Daquan Finn being the best quarterback in the MAC, who ironically used to play for Toledo, but then went to Baylor, got benched in favor of Sawyer Washington, who he's a big reason why Baylor is a dark horse in the Big 12. So now he's back in the MAC with Miami. I think the Toledo team is going to be really special, though. I think they could finish, 11-1 and maybe even go undefeated, because the only loss I see for them is Kentucky that they play in week 1. But you see what they did to Mississippi State last year. So certainly not completely out of the question for Toledo to go into another SEC building and beat them boys as well.
Yep. The MAC, in my opinion, is wide open. You've got teams like Toledo, teams like you mentioned with Miami, but also another team that I'm really high on in the MAC is Buffalo. With, you see Garrett picking Al-Jay Henderson here. He was a stud last year for Buffalo, and I know they're replacing their quarterback, but they return a lot of production. I can't remember now what the name is of their head coach, but I really like the program that he's building over there.
Yeah, I've really been a fan of what we have with what Pete Lambeau's building out there. Not just what he's been able to do in terms of turning his program around, but also just in terms of what he's been able to do like off the field as well. They've been recruiting at a surprisingly high level. I think for a G5, they're even able to get like a 4-star prospect, like from the high school ranks, like in the state of Ohio, like for that defensive line, someone that could certainly play right away in 2026. The transfer quarterback that I think you're talking about actually used to play at Kansas State and backed up Avery Johnson last year, and that's Daquan Robertson. So I mean, if he can develop and really take advantage of that MACtion competition, I think Buffalo is certainly number one of those teams. And another squad that we haven't talked about much, Ohio. The Bobcats, the defending conference champions, right? And Parker Navarro is back, leading this offense. Yes, they lost their head coach, but I think Ohio can absolutely be in the mix as well this upcoming season. So it'll be a fun conference for sure. And I mean, midweek action, man, always creates some absolute chaos. Man,
I love me some action, especially once we get into that stretch of November. And, it's like last year, there were 50 consecutive days of football between NFL and college football. And it was the midweek action and the Tuesday night Conference USA action. And those games just lived up to the hype and carried me over until Saturdays. And it was great stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm my wife like rolled her eyes a little bit when we got into like the 50 days of heaven, but me, like I'm an absolute sicko for it. But man, oh man. So another team I think would be interesting in terms of maybe being a deeper sleeper is Bowling Green.
I was just about to touch on 3 Tech Pod's pick right there with Sire Gaines. I don't think anybody is going to continue what they did last year at running back. with Genty because that dude was a baller. But man, Sire Gaines, from the little bit of action that I think he can not continue their role.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone is touching what Genty did last year, and in my opinion, I think that was somebody that I felt should have won the the Heisman Trophy last year. I had him over Travis Hunter, and not taking anything away from Travis Hunter at all. That what Travis Hunter did was also really special last year. But in my opinion, I think what he was able to do in terms of rushing for over 2,000 yards and actually threaten Barry Sanders' record, we don't see that like every year where we're starting to see more like two-way guys. But going back to what you said about this backfield, I still think this backfield can do some good things. And I agree with you. I don't think there's going to be as much of a drop off as maybe one would expect. From this Boise State running game.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm a little frustrated at 3 Tech Pod for grabbing Gaines as early as they did because I was hoping to snag him later. But so that was a very solid pick by them.
Yeah, I hear you on that. This is a game that we play. Being around so many ball knowers, like in this league. I don't think anyone's going to be truly flying under the radar in this one. It's certainly shown so far as we started to get ourselves into round 4.
Yeah, it's going by pretty fast. I wanted to say something a while back that I really like that Cade Durham pick, the LSU running back. I think he's going to do some special things. I know my co-host season, he's been on him as a potential guy that's going to be one of the best running backs in college football this year.
Yeah, I listen. Like my thoughts about like LSU. It's well documented. Like over on your show, I just do not trust Brian Kelly, man. Like I feel like Brian Kelly just always seems to find a way to, I guess, really waste the the elite talent that he has, and he has an elite roster. Don't get me wrong. That roster absolutely has what it takes to really do something special in the SEC. But I just think like Brian Kelly's just going to find a way. And to be honest with you, I would teeter to say that Brian Kelly might be in the bottom half of the SEC in terms of like head coaching pedigree, in terms of who I would rather have.
Yeah, but I would say, I was going to say, when it comes to Durham, though, that Brian Kelly is the type of coach that, is not a top tier program that you would recognize when it comes to running the ball, but he's going to run the ball for sure. I'm definitely like a pretty good pick. I mean, like a lot of these picks are like are really good picks. There really hasn't been like anything that I've seen so far that's I found to be like peculiar by any means. But man, I need to figure out what I want to do with my next pick, since it's coming up before you know it. I know you guys are probably like thinking the same thing. Yeah, and my fee for me, I might do a little bit of dipping to the G5 possibly, but just have to wait and see. That's for sure. Yeah, it seemed in years past, my go-to has been G5. A lot of people that I've talked to have talked about how, they argue that they don't like playing in leagues that include the G5 because it's not the same level of competition. But I appreciate these guys, and I still think those guys are ballers. And I'm thinking about maybe making a G5 pick here in my next pick, seeing who's available.
Yeah, and I'm getting some like some real riveting suggestions in the live chat here tonight. Got to take Bowling Green's QB1 like Drew Pine. Might have to make that consideration. The greatest journeyman in all college football, coming up on his his 4th school now. something like that.
Just something like that. He's trying to fill out that.
I'm really curious. Is Drew Pine even listed as a player I can draft? Oh, he is. He doesn't have an ADP though. Might have ourselves a 20th round sleeper after we pick up Zachariah Branch, of course. Yeah, four schools. I was running ahead. Like for Drew Pine. The $1 question is, what is the commish gonna do with his 4th round selection?
I got burned by him last year a little bit, but at the end of the season, Ashlock came through for me. Really like what over at Hawaii. I really like that. What is it? That veer and shoot offense that they run over there. So, rather go with the guy that I know.
Yeah, I definitely like hear you on that. I think that Hawaii offense is gonna be. I think it's gonna be a really fun watch. I'm ecstatic for their Week 0 matchup that they have between between Hawaii and Stanford. I think that's going to be the most competitive game that we see in Week 0 between those two. And also, like, shout out to Tommy Chang. I think this Hawaii team that he's able to put together, I think it's going to be the most talented team that he's had since arriving on Honolulu to coach his football team up, and has a genuine shot to maybe make a little bit more noise than usual in the Mountain West.
Yeah, and I will add, you mentioned that Week 0 matchup. I think I overlooked how playing in Week 0 will give them 3 bye weeks during the season and 1 specifically during the playoffs. And so,
yeah, that's going to be a tough one. But thankfully, this is a 2-quarterback league, so we talked about quarterbacks quite a bit. I know that this is going to be a team that's going to be throwing it all over yards. So I know I said I was going to wait till later to pick up a quarterback. But with this being a 2-quarterback league, I just simply can't help myself. I got to get Micah Alejado onto the squad, man. He's too hard to resist. Had to pick him up, and then
it's not the quarterback I thought you were going to pick, but I didn't want to say names to ruin it for somebody else.
Yeah, I was going back and forth between him and Parker Navarro. He's certainly it was like 1-2. I just think Hawaii is going to throw the ball a little bit more than Ohio is, and they play in better weather overall, like in their home stadium than Ohio is going to do. So that's really the driver. Better weather to throw the ball in. Now, what I also want to do is I think I want to go ahead and possibly pick up another running back here. I think I'm going to go with Nate Frazier, not just because like his ADP is like the best available or nothing like that. But I do think they're going to have a relatively inexperienced quarterback in Gunnar Stockton. So I think they're going to try to lean on that physicality a little bit more that we're very accustomed to seeing from Georgia. And, because of that, I think Nate Frazier could be in for a relatively big year with him potentially being a vocal point in his offense.
So you think that Georgia finally has a 1,000-yard back this decade?
Yeah. So, I mean, I can see it. I mean, like I mean, let's be honest. Gunnar Stockton is a question mark. We only seen him play extensively in the SEC championship, which yes, he did lead a comeback against Texas. But then at the same time, we saw him play against Notre Dame, and no, he was not the reason that they lost to Notre Dame by any means. But he wasn't necessarily the solution. So, not saying that Gunnar Stockton is going to be a weakness of this Georgia offense. I'm not saying that at all, but it is a little bit of a question mark, and I'm sure Chris can certainly acknowledge that, not knowing what we're going to see. So yeah, I mean, I can certainly see Georgia leaning on that run game, leaning on that physicality, and that could open up some big numbers for Nate Frazier, particularly in the non-conference going up against Marshall to open up the year.
Yeah, I think there's been a big emphasis this offseason at Georgia fixing the run game from last year. It was the O-line And the running game in general is just not that good. But I think from everything I'm reading, you're going to see a lot more emphasis put on the run game, especially with Gunnar Stockton's legs. Kirby mentioned that at the press conference the other day, that they plan to use his legs more in the run game. So that should help Fraser. I love that pick. I had him saved. I was hoping he was going to be available in my next turn.
Well, I'm so sorry that I stole your like your prize like Georgia Bulldog. I'll make sure I'll get my wife to bring in my small violin, and I'll play a sad tune for you, as you now have to put some actual thought in terms of who you want to go if your fifth selection. I'm sure you're looking at possibly like a second running back here, but I'm very curious with what direction like you're going with that second running back, or if you even do end up getting running back at all, because you
I'm
certainly
looking at running back, yeah. And I don't know much about the G5 guys, so I'm kind of just having to go off of what the app's telling me. Oh crap! I only got 48 seconds. Let's see. All right, I'm gonna take one that's kind of down on the list, but that I think is gonna be amazing this year, and that's Arizona State's running back from Army.
From Army. Yeah, really excited to see what you can do there. I almost forgot that this is now my pick.
Yeah.
All right, we got the Cam Scatterboo replacement in Kanye Ayudo. You know, Sam Levitt's new best friend in the backfield. Yeah, I got you chasing it, Addy. Appreciate you coming through and watching this college football fantasy draft stream. We got 20 full rounds, so it should be should be a good night of ball knowing right here, as we now get ourselves entrenched in the fifth round, or really got to get my two brain cells together in terms of putting together the rest of his roster.
Excited to see one of the leaders in the college fantasy football space, and Jared Palmgren joining us tonight. You know, they might have a three-headed back or a three-headed committee with the running backs in Texas, but I really think that Trey Wisner is gonna be the lead back, and Sark is gonna have a 1,000-yard back there.
I'm kind of regretting not taking that pick. That's who I was wanting to go with, and now that I'm like stupidly reading after my pick, that apparently Arizona State is in a apparent battle with RB1 at Arizona State, so that he may not even be RB1. So a little nervous about that pick now.
Yeah,
well, the beautiful thing about it is that it's thankfully we, unlike in actual college football, we have a chance to like drop these guys on a dime and pick somebody else if it turns out that your guy ends up not even like winning the starting job at the end of the fall camp.
Yeah, that's a hard thing about still drafting a little early, but I like to push it back as close to the start of football season after fall camp as I can. Because I don't know if you guys ever remember De'Aaron King back in 2019, the very first year I started playing college fantasy football. But pre-fall camp, he was a top 5 consensus, arguably top 3 quarterback that year. And then fall camp happened, and I don't think even after fall camp or midway through the year, he was even on the team. And thankfully, I waited until after fall camp had started, and so I was able to avoid that headache.
Yeah, I definitely hear you. I mean, like a worst case scenario, right? Like you went through and like you do all the work, and then you draft your team, and then like something happens after the draft where what you described with De'Aaron King, And like it ends up being the worst thing is having like a first round bust in fantasy, and it's just the nature of the game. Sometimes it happens to all of us.
Yeah, we've all had our fair share of first round busts.
Yeah, man, I ran into that experience like last year, like for NFL fantasy, like had the first overall pick. So went with my guy like Christian McCaffrey for example, and then like after a draft, I found out the dude flies to Germany. Okay, he flies to Germany to get his knees looked at, and then all of a sudden, Christian McCaffrey is basically a no show for the entire year. So I'm just sitting there, just not loving the fact that my first round pick is on the bench all the time.
Yeah, and the worst thing about
guys,
that was that he was.
Oh, sorry. I just sent you a message. I'm fixing up to run. The kids start school tomorrow, and I got to go help the wife get them all situated for the summer to come to an end.
Oh man, nothing like starting up school. Hey man, well I really appreciate taking the time and coming on to my show. Glad we're able to get a little bit of de facto home and home going. But you take it easy, and looking forward to dominating you when the actual season starts.
Yes, sir. I appreciate the invite to this. This was a lot. I'll keep my phone with me so I can make draft picks while I'm giving baths and getting plates ready for dinner. So appreciate the invite, guys, and looking forward to the season. Yeah, yeah. Y'all have a good one.
Yeah, thanks for hopping on, Chris.
Yes, sir. Oh, and yeah, I forgot I didn't even promote my own show. Yeah, subscribe to our channel at CFB_SZN. We go live every Thursday. Got a Big Ten preview coming up, and like I said, Jake's been on there a couple of times, and this is also a great channel. So yeah, I appreciate it, guys.
Yeah, definitely friends of the program for sure. So something that I'm going to be doing like towards the end of the stream is like for both like Headgear Insights as well as our friends over at like College Football Season. Like both of their channels are going to be linked down in the description. So if you guys like them here as a guest, I'm sure you would love them even more with their actual content. So I'll make sure to do that on the back end. It might be once I make my my next round of picks, but yeah, definitely make sure you go check both of their channels out, man. I would heavily recommend it. That's for sure. I do think like we have a fan for you, Austin, though, because Chasing the Natty, a college football fantasy podcast, says he loves your team so far. Only pick he doesn't love is the Ashlock selection that you made in the 4th round. Any comments for our boy Chasing the Natty joining us on the like on the live stream here tonight?
Yeah, I'll say also, I believe he commented saying that he hosts his own fantasy drafts every Sunday night during the off season, and so after we get done with ours, I'm going to be sure to hop on and talk some ball on his live stream that he does. But him and I are good buddies, and we talk college fantasy football. And he's actually one of the guys that got me started with creating content for college fantasy football. So a huge shout out to Jared and over at Jason the Natty. But when it comes to his comment and my praise for my team, and then the comment about Ashlock, I got to go with a guy that I knew. And whether it's a guy that I know that will hurt me in the end, or a guy that could win me a championship like he did last year, I got to go with my guy Ashlock.
Yeah, that's the the biggest thing. Going with your gut. I mean, and like he said, he loves like the rest of your team. And what I didn't know though that was he was like a big reason for your why in terms of like you like started up your channel. Because I know we talked on offline a couple of times, like on a one-on-one basis, and like we both started our channels at around the same time. So while we're waiting for this next round, besides like Chasing the Natty, who else really drove you in terms of inspiring you to jump into like the college football content creation space.
On top of him, another guy specific to college fantasy football would be John Lobb and the guys over at Rookie Big Board, and all of his work that John does over at Fantrax, writing there. But I would really have to say, really everybody in this league are guys that I've looked up to and have inspired me to start my own channel and start creating content. And that's why I wanted to reach out to everybody here, was because they all put together such great content. I'm sure, as you know, starting on stuff like this is a lot of hard work. And so I'm excited to get this stuff kicked off this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've seen that like as well, because this is my channel is definitely in its infancy as around. We've only had like content on the channel for a little less than a month now, even that, and saying that our channel is a month old here at College Football Red Zone, that is a that might be a little gracious with the rounding, like, so to speak. But I know that like for me, so this is not even my first stab at making content, right? We had a gaming channel, and it was a relatively successful one. Able to get like a few thousand subscribers over there. But what happened is like my son was born like in the month of December, and while I was on the like paternity leave for the last 90 days, during like the first few months that my son was born, I found myself, being burned out between, like making content there, as well as, learning what it means, to be a dad, like, so to speak. So, we stepped away from content, and, obviously, like, it led to, like much greater success in terms of, being a better dad, being a better husband, all that stuff. But the, like the itch was still there, and, just very thankful that, that my wife, she probably will not be shown like here on the stream. Neither will my son at any given point. But I having her blessing and having her support to allow me to scratch the itch, so to speak, in terms of making content and doing something that I feel passionate about, because I've had like my own power rating model for the last couple of years was relatively successful. So to be able to like turn this and also there's been some comments in terms of, wanting a college football version of NFL Redzone and not really having that option. And, I'm just looking around, just figuring, why not me? So, just very thankful for my wife, shout out to my wife, as well as my soon to be 8-month-old son for, being supportive, because if they were not supportive and, she didn't feel comfortable with me doing this, this channel would not exist whatsoever. So
and I know a lot of the guys here and just creators across the sphere, all the married creators across the sphere. Huge shout out to the wives. I can't shout them out enough. The backbone to be able to allow us to do what we're doing there. And I've got 3 boys, 4th boy on the way. And it's great as the boys get older, they become more excited to watch football with me. And so I'm excited to raise the next generation of football fans. And I know you also touched on, the excitingness that's happening over with College Football Red Zone. And as people are a little dismayed on the news of NFL Red Zone moving to ESPN, I think that's really exciting for you to be able to grow in that space for college football fans who might be a little frustrated with more commercials for NFL Red Zone.
Yeah, or at the very least, being someone that is at least trying, right? Because there's, we've had attempts at a college football Red Zone in the past with like ESPN Goal Line. But what's been very limiting about ESPN Goal Line, which I think led to like some of its downfall, was that it did focus, it seemed almost primarily on the Power 4, and acting like the G5 doesn't exist, and like the G5 just created as a second-class citizens, which I understand. There is definitely a skill gap between the power conferences and the G5. Let's not kid ourselves here. I think we're all realistic from that standpoint, but that doesn't mean that there isn't quality football being played at the G5, that there isn't exciting football being played down at the G5 level. So
Oh,
to at
absolutely.
least provide myself an opportunity to try and put something together. Very very excited about the opportunity for sure. Is I gotta lock in on a pick. I just realized it came by quickly, so I
Oh
need to
yeah,
figure out.
these guys move by fast. And I'll also add too is that while we're praising the group of five, I want to shout out a couple guys, specifically group of five guys. If you haven't already checked out their platform, I recommend you subscribe to them right now. And a second one being the G5 Hive. I don't think anybody dives deeper into the group of five than those two groups right there. And while I think a lot of creators and analysts put the spotlight on the Power Four programs, the group of five programs are your backbone of college football. Now, while I rep Michigan here in the studio, I'm a proud supporter of my alma mater, MTSU Blue Raiders. So I think more Power Four programs and Power Four fans need to support their local G5 schools.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with agrything that you said. And really, for me, so it's really interesting in my fandom. So I grew up as an Ohio State fan, right? But then my sister went to University of Cincinnati, and then my little brother also ended up later going to Cincinnati. And they were both in the marching band. Both seeing really the tragedy that was the Tommy Tuberville era, as well as really that first year of Luke Fickell, where they struggled to beat UConn. And I know UConn is a quality G5 program now, and we love the work over there up in Connecticut. But back in that first year that Luke Fickell was the head man at Cincinnati, that UConn was not a quality program. And I remember needing a miracle field goal or extra point missed just so that we could see Cincinnati win that game. And so during that time, Cincinnati actually became my soft spot in terms of being my G5 team to root for. And then when they made the jump over to to the Power Four, getting an invite into the Big 12 and being a part of that, really embracing Cincinnati is my team. So it's just amazing to see the journey that some of these teams take, and really like you said, appreciating your your local G5 because there is a lot of good football being played out in those ranks, and it's not certainly just limited to the Power Four. That's for sure.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's another great reason why everybody should play college fantasy football is because you can have the customization of picking and choosing what teams you want to be within the league and for your player pool. But I think you should always include all FBS teams, even the Missouri State and Delaware. And you can find a lot of hidden gems. And whether it's the Astro of the world or guys like Ahmad Hardy, you really know who they are kind of before they become big.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of Delaware and Missouri State, I'm definitely excited to see really both of those programs making their FBS debut here in 2025. Especially knowing that that we are seeing how the Conference USA is right now. Those are two programs in particular that I think could certainly surprise some people. Going into the 2025 season, and we talked about earlier how open the the Big 12 is. I think you can certainly make that kind of case too for Conference USA, where it feels like from 3 to 12 in the Conference USA, you can almost get a randomizer out, and I would not be shocked by the overall order of finish for say.
Yeah, once you once you get to 3, I feel like 1 or 2 is more or less your Liberty and Western Kentucky, but your 3 through 12, you could have a lot of good sleepers there.
Yeah, I definitely agree, and that's that I had the Conference USA like power rankings released on Twitter. Was it Saturday? Yesterday, I think. Maybe no. What today? What is today? Yeah, it was Saturday. I didn't realize Sam Levitt has been available this entire time.
I had that clock.
But yeah, but going back to like the Conference USA, like I have your similar wavelength of thinking. Just going off of, I do have Liberty as my overarching favorite to win the like the Conference USA this year. But then Western Kentucky being my consensus second best team. But really, if you take a hard look at like 3 through 12, I really don't think there's that big of a gap. And you could really see some surprises. I think in the Conference USA this year should be a lot of really fun midweek football being played because before action really gets into the full swing in the later part of the year, late October into November, it's the Conference USA that has those midweek games going first. And so there's definitely a lot of opportunities to have some fun midweek games over in the Conference USA.
Yeah, absolutely. And they've made a great move there to do their own action, CUSA action of sort with playing on Tuesday nights. So we get a dedicated Tuesday night for Conference USA, dedicated weekday night for action, and then great games sprinkled in on Thursdays or Friday nights too, with some of the bigger name schools that are playing during the week too.
Yeah, absolutely. But going back to like for both Delaware and Missouri State, I know like the popular thing is really seeing FCS teams when they make the transition initially, they tend to struggle early on. But taking a look at some of the more recent FCS transfers, that's not always the case. I think the most popular example is James Madison when they made the transition from the FCS ranks and joined the Sun Belt. That was a program that was very successful right away ever since. And, you want to talk about a more recent example just within the Conference USA itself. Sam Houston, just as last year, was a 10-win team. Jacksonville State in their 2 years at the FBS, they were a bowl eligible team 4 times around. So it's very good like to see those programs. And then particularly for Delaware and Missouri State, they can certainly mix it up here. Delaware is going to come back. They got some coaching stability. They got some returning production. So I think Delaware is going to be a sneaky good team. I actually have it in the top 5 in that conference. And then Missouri State, I don't think they're going to be a pushover either. Missouri State, I am more worried about their defense because they had a hard time stopping a nosebleed in the FCS, and now you're moving up. That defense could be an issue, but even Missouri State, I think they're going to be really fun to watch. They're going to have a very dynamic offense, and it's not necessarily a game where if you're a conference team, you're not marking that W in pen.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you touched on those recent teams who moved up to the FBS with James Madison and Jacksonville State, and I believe Jacksonville State was actually the team that won Conference USA this past year, but the difference between those two teams versus a team like Kennesaw State is I would say both of those teams have really, really good really good head coaches who have now moved on to bigger schools, with James Madison's coach Signetti going to Indiana, and then Jacksonville State's coach Rich Rod going back home to West Virginia. Now we're kind of in a wait and see mode with those two teams, but then in comparison, you've got your Kennesaw State and even more or less Sam Houston States, who I really like what they're doing at Sam Houston State, but being a smaller school in Texas, it's hard pickings there. But if you don't have a really, really good roster or a really, really, really great head coach, then it's really hard to build a program there. But really still excited to see what they can do at Delaware and Missouri State. I think Delaware probably has the advantage because, unless I'm mistaken, Missouri State has to replace a lot of players. But I think both of those teams could be in the fold for Conference USA.
Yeah, and just touching back up on Kennesaw State, for example, I know like for them, they were not coming into the FBS with high expectations because I know for year one, obviously things didn't go necessarily the way that they wanted to go, but secondarily, I mean, those 2 years that Kennesaw State had going into the FBS, where I believe they were like an FCS independent, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, this was a team that finished below 500. So I know that going in, Kennesaw State maybe not having the highest expectations. Their coach that they ended up firing, who initially I believe started the program there at Kennesaw State. This is a young football program starting around like 2015, 2016. I felt that he should have at least had an opportunity to get another year. I mean, you can't expect too much going up to a higher level of competition where generally you're coming into every game and you're going to be at a disadvantage in the trenches. And that's really the difference between the FCS and FBS level. Not necessarily, like the skill of your quarterback or like the skill of your like your skilled players on both sides of the ball. Because we've seen all the time, FCS players get drafted, particularly like your quarterbacks like Cam Ward, and also like Carson Wentz, Trey Lance, still be first round selections and originally starting at the FCS ranks. But it's really the trenches that's really the difference. And, having that disadvantage there in every single game, it's a tough adjustment, in the first year or two.
Yeah. Sorry, I was trying to lock in my pick there, choosing Bangura, Ohio, and getting a good.
Oh no, I
good
completely hear
I really
you.
like what Bangura did a couple years ago. Appreciate that. It was a give and take between him and Robertson, but I think with what Arizona State is doing, having to replace Scadaboo last year, I know Chris picked up Udo and he was a little upset about that. And then in comparison with Robertson at Baylor and Washington there in the backfield, Washington is a really, really solid back that could be a great fantasy back. And so if you have a question mark at running back, I would rather take the known commodity at quarterback.
Yeah, I definitely hear you, and I mean I definitely agree with that. Like general assumptions, I need to lock in terms of what I want to do for my team. Thinking I might want to go with a third receiver. I know that for sure, but the $1 million question is, do I want to start building up this bench? Man, that's going to be a tough question.
And speaking of receiver, we've got TNT still auto picking, but he picked Pena from Penn State. And I really like what Pena did last year at Syracuse, along with, I can't remember his name now, but the wide receiver they brought in from Troy to Penn State. And they've really, really elevated the wide receiver room there. And I'm curious to get your thoughts on the wide receiver room at Penn State, and if this is the answers to the questions that people have been asking about Penn State.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that's one of the two biggest questions in terms of this year is a receiving room gonna rise to level good enough to where this is not going to be a a one-dimensional offense, which I think that's what really hurt them in terms of those big plays games when they were playing against Ohio State in the regular season, when they were playing against Oregon in the Big Ten championship game. And, yes, they did win multiple CFP games, but, it was not supposed to be this big surprise seeing them beat SMU or even beating Boise State. They were favored in both those games somewhat considerably. So I wasn't too terribly surprised by that at all. as I'm looking around thinking about what I want to do with my next pick. Whoo boy. Lots of tough decisions need to be made here tonight. I need to figure out, do I want to go and build this bench out?
Yeah.
I think that's what I might want to do here.
Yeah, looking ahead, I feel like, this is where you really got to look for depth, specifically in my opinion, the running back and wide receiver, because you're going to flow through those rooms even more. If you can lock in a really good, more or less top tier quarterback, then you don't have to move as much on the waiver wire during the regular season.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we want to go.
You could also lock in a tight end. And I know a couple of tight ends have been taken. We have yet to take a kicker. Nope, nobody's taken a kicker yet, I believe. We do play with kickers. I believe kickers are people. So I'm excited to see who the first kicker off the board is.
Yeah, I'm very curious as well. Usually what I like to do, regardless of whether it's college or whether it's with the pros, I usually wait until we get into like the last couple of rounds before I worry about a kicker. Because usually what I like to do, and I don't know if you do this as well, is I usually like to go ahead and I like to basically stream my kickers like on a week-to-week basis. And I do like the same thing for my defense, looking for the best matchups. So I know that we had a couple of defenses like pick here tonight. I saw like Tennessee go in the 8th round by CFB, like Talk Daily. And then most recently, Jake Crane over in like Crane and Company. He just recently selected the Alabama defense in the 9th round. I think I'm going to just go ahead and I'll probably wait until in the back end, unless, we get to a point where I don't really like the options that I have at the skill positions and maybe go a little bit earlier. But that's kind of my general thinking, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think the best strategy, more or less, is to break your positions into tiers. And if you start to see a run on, let's say, like right now, a run on running backs, speaking, I guess, towards the front of the draft, if you see a run on running backs and you see your top tiers start to disappear, go ahead and make your move on running backs there. And that might be what my strategy will probably be when it comes to defenses. I've got, I guess now 3 or 4 defenses that I have my eye on. And if I start to see a couple of them slip, then it might be time for me to make my move with that.
Yeah, and then it also becomes a matter of like trying to line up bye weeks as well. Because there's certain players on this list that that I do have high regard in. If it was more of a best ball type of league, would have already been gone. But trying to consider those bye weeks as well, it gets pretty interesting in terms of trying to figure out what I want to do in terms of who I want to go ahead and roll with. From that standpoint, because I want to go with certain players, but I also don't want to have get to a point where I don't have enough players to play because I loaded up too much on a certain buy.
Oh yeah, trust me. When you get to the middle of the season, you start getting into bye week hell, and especially when it comes to playoff time, bye week hell really becomes hell. I think I'm gonna.
Oh yeah.
Go with a here that, although they've got weapons all over the field, when it comes to quarterback with Julian saying, good tight end will be a nice comfort pillow for him.
Yeah. You know what? I really like that selection. That was a guy that was a bright spot. It was an abysmal Purdue team last year. I know he transferred in from Purdue to join this like Ohio State roster, and I definitely understand the reasoning from there. Knowing that you're going to have an inexperienced quarterback in Julian Sayin, and if you're going to have a question mark at the quarterback position, you would like to have that question mark be a former 5-star recruit. So at least there's that. At the same token, yeah, it's still a young player that hasn't played extensively. So I think that's a really good pick that you made, like in the 9th round, picking up Max Clare, who I know is going to be your starting tight end because that's the first tight end you picked up. And that's the same reason I picked up Sadiq over in Oregon because I know Dante Moore. He does have a little bit more experience back to his UCLA days, but we haven't seen him play extensively in the last couple of years. So I think Sadiq can be really valuable to like a Dante Moore as well, who's going to be trying to take in the reins from like a Dylan Gabriel.
Yeah, I was a little surprised to see Jake take Eli Stowers from Vanderbilt with his 3rd round pick. But between Stowers or Sadiq, I think that's going to be your tight end 1 for the year. And I'll add 2, because one of these guys hasn't been taken yet, so I don't want to name names. But when Sam took Sayan as his quarterback 1, Sayan, even though he's a first-year quarterback for Ohio State, I made a graphic, I believe yesterday, looking at the top fantasy programs this decade for each position, quarterback, running back, and wide receiver, and Ohio State is number 1. So whether you have an experienced guy with C.J. Stroud or first-year quarterback with Will Howard, Ohio State is a program to where you expect the quarterback to be a top-tier player.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know for like Julian saying, yes, he is absolutely inexperienced. But I mean, at the very least, he's going to be surrounded by some incredible weapons this year. Whether you're talking about like your receivers, Jeremiah Smith, as well as like Cornell Tate. That's certainly not a bad like wide receiver 1 and 2 to have. Max Clare 2 as your tight end. One of the lone bright spots from that Purdue team last year, and then like not to mention that place being a like wide receiver so as long as he's not like a Joe Bowserman type, right? I'm sure he'll be fine. It's just a matter of like how good is he actually? Is it kind of like a Kyle McCord good, where like he's capable of putting up good stats, but isn't capable of winning in the big games, or is this like more of a like an even higher level, like either like a Justin Fields, C.J. Stroud, as well as other quarterbacks that's came through recently.
Yeah, they're definitely set up for success because, like I said, not only was Ohio State either the 1 or 2 program for college fantasy quarterbacks, but this also proves that they are wide receiver U. They are the best wide receiver program when it comes to college fantasy football. So yeah, he's definitely set up for success, and I'm surprised that a lot of people are sleeping on Julian Sayan coming into 2025.
Yeah,
with him being a bottom ranked or ranked lower than what he should be, in my opinion, when it comes to Big Ten quarterbacks.
Yeah, and I mean, there's certainly some quarterbacks I'm a little bit more excited about that haven't been drafted yet tonight, which I understand. So for me, I have Drew Allar not only the best quarterback in this conference, but I would make I think there's a genuine argument out there that Drew Allar could be QB1. It's just his stats aren't going to necessarily pop out like a Cade Klubnik necessarily, because he is in a little bit of a run heavier offense. But you take a look at his traits in terms of his athletic ability and his the arm talent that he has. I mean, he's oozing with it. It's just he's in a little bit more of a run heavy offense, and his receivers have not lived up to the standard necessarily. So I could see Drew Allar being a top 5 quarterback in all of college football this year. Now that he has an actual receiving core that he could throw to. But then like Luke Altmaier, I'm surprised Luke Altmaier hasn't been picked yet either.
Yeah, those two are guys who I'm familiar with. They're not new quarterbacks, and so we've seen them play the last couple of years. And so speaking to them from a fantasy football standpoint. Sorry, I got distracted by CFB Talk Daily's auto pick there, and I'm not familiar. I don't think that is the starting kicker over at Michigan, so I'm not sure what was going on with that auto pick there. So that completely threw me off there. But I think what I was going to say is that when it comes to Aller and the guy over at Illinois, Altmaier, they're great quarterbacks. They just don't have the stats to make them top fantasy quarterbacks.
Yeah, it's understandable. I mean, I could definitely see why. They're not going to be in an offense that's maybe conducive for putting up good numbers for fantasy, which makes it so fascinating. Like the caveat between picking someone like for a fantasy team and picking someone for like a hypothetical you're starting an actual team. It's a very interesting like caveat. So like for that reason that you mentioned, I would not be surprised if I saw Drew Aller be undrafted, because I don't think he's going to put up some great numbers, or at least not someone that you're pegging to be a consistent starting quarterback, like in a fantasy setting. But definitely someone I would love to have on my football team if it was real life.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I'm not sold on Drew Aller yet, but I'm excited to be proven wrong. I think that's my quote. You can slap that on a T-shirt entering 2025. Is there are a lot of guys, whether it's Aller or Arch Manning, who I'm not sold on yet, but I'm excited to be proven wrong.
Yeah, and someone that I am like rooting for that isn't a part of my like my fandom necessarily. I am actually rooting for Arch Manning. Just someone that just listening to him talking in interviews and how he like carries himself as a person. It's certainly someone that I'm rooting for. He is a little bit of a question mark, because yes, we've seen him start, but we've seen him start against like UTSA and start against like UL Monroe, I believe, possibly Mississippi State, but not necessarily the highest level of competition. Seeing him now as a full-fledged starter in his first big start going in week 1 against Ohio State, I'm very curious how he handles that environment at Ohio Stadium as his first major start.
Yeah, Manning is just the type of guy to where, and since his top player, but he's one of the players I will be happy to let somebody else pick when it comes to fantasy.
Yeah, and I know that was I know, ironically enough, we had like a many runs of quarterbacks, starting with like Cade Klubnik being picked by the TFL, the Twitter Football League, which is a good follow for those of you that are watching on the live stream, whether it is on the YouTube or whether it is on Twitch as well. We don't discriminate around here. Definitely recommend following them on Twitter if you have Twitter, because they're a fun watch. And I am a proud sponsor of the TFL as well. But Cade Klubnik, saw him make a run, starting a miniature quarterback run back in round 2. And then I saw you picked up Lenora Sellers, as well as like Arch Manning, picked up by CFB Season right after your second round pick. So it's going to be very interesting to see what that final order is going to be when we're all said and done here and the game's been played. But definitely quarterbacks that all have tremendous upside.
Sorry, I was having. Let me see if I can make my pick here. Hoping my internet doesn't crash out on me. That's the worst thing that can happen to you during a fantasy football draft, is poor internet connection.
Oh, listen, I made the mistake of having to do I did like a fantasy draft while I was driving, and what happened to me was like during the draft itself, like I got into a dead zone while driving, because my wife allowed me to be passenger princess, and it all drafted more picks than what I was comfortable with. and this is a league where like there was like a minor amount of money on the line. This is like overall no like underdog. So I know the feeling. It hurt.
I think all of the sickos, the fantasy football sickos, can relate to having that moment of trying to draft while driving or riding in the vehicle.
Yeah, or either that or while actively at work, because that might be a reality that I might be facing later this fall. Because right now, one of my fantasy leagues, for whatever reason, has it say during the week and like in the middle of the day at like 2 o'clock Eastern. So I'm just sitting there, it's like, man, I know I don't get off for like for another couple of hours. Am I going to have to run and hide in a bathroom and just hope that everything turns out okay? It's just a lot of questions that we're asking, uncomfortable questions, but we'll I'll work our way through it. But for now, what I'm gonna do is pick up a couple of players I've been eyeing for a little bit now. I really love Byron Brown out of Southern Florida. It's gonna be a little tough. I think like the first few weeks, toughest non-conference schedule in college football.
Mm-hmm.
Playing up against Miami, playing against Florida, and then also playing against Boise State as well. Week 1 on a Thursday night.
Man, that's a game I'm excited for.
I am too. I think it's going to be like a really fun watch. So I'm picking him up on my team for sure. And then we continue the quest in terms of what I want to do for depth. As let's see here. I want this guy. What's receiver looking like, man?
Oh, I know what my plan was with that quarterback there. Yeah, you picked up Brown there, and I don't know how much South Florida Bulls you watched last year, but Brown, he was your top 1-2 pick along with Caden Salter. And like I touched on with De'Aaron King back in 2019, both of those guys turned out to be major busts. And it was just really – and there was really no reason why. It wasn't like a major injury. I think Brown might have had a minor injury, but it was just, inexcusable mystery behind a bust there, along with, I'm blanking on his name, but the running back over at Oklahoma State last year. In 2023, he popped off, and I believe he was a top 3 fantasy running back and a really, really good running back overall. And then he entered 2024, top tier running back, probably your running back 1 overall, and he just turned out to be a major bust there.
Yeah, like I said, like it just happens. It's just, we're starting to really get into like the nitty gritty, like the first like few picks, just feel like we were just rolling along and having a good time. It's like now it's like, damn, we are in the thick of it now, gentlemen. What am I who am I to do?
This is where you're really taking that full 2-minute timer and looking around to see your options and guys you might recognize from years past or up and comers. I know Jake just took Peoples over at Ohio State. I think he is fighting for that running back 1 role along with, I'm blanking on his name, but I believe the transfer from West Virginia. I think it's C.J. Donaldson. So they're both fighting for running back 1, but I think Peoples could really pop off.
Yeah, and it's there's certain players on my board that I would really love to have on my team. But at the same time, like the big issue that I'm really running into right now, it's really the like the quintessential like buy issue that I'm running into, because I want to make sure that I actually have players that can play without worrying about do I have to run to the waiver wire just to fill out my starting lineup. That's really it's getting really like difficult right now because of that.
Absolutely. I just realized I'm kind of short. Besides my starting running backs, I'm a little short on running back, so I'm going to pick up a guy from Powerhouse running back powerhouse at Memphis.
Mm. Yeah, that was.
And I really
I
hope
mean,
that Eagles
I
win.
was kind of considering getting him too. I really like that pick. It's just, yeah, like I was worried about all those buys. I didn't like how the buys lined up compared to the other running backs that I have on my roster already. So it's yeah, just a tough time to be alive. Just hoping I can find some good some good
Just
players.
fighting to survive right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've still got, because I've got my top. I think all of us have our quarterback 1 and 2, and so when you're looking at depth, I've still got several options there of guys in my queue. I need to pick up a couple more wide receivers there, but this is where you're really rounding out your main guys, and then entering around 18, 19, 20 is, in my experience, just guys that you're taking flyers on, guys that you're hoping might pop off, kind of like last year with Zachariah Branch for me.
Mhm.
He was a guy that I was really high on, and I think it turned out to be come week 1. I think I ended up dropping him just because he wasn't what I was looking for, but he could be really good this year.
Oh yeah, for sure. You know, this is definitely starting to get to a point where like as most of the like the starting lineup is like being filled out. You know, it started a point where you're looking more for that upside versus like going for really like who is a safe floor player, because you don't need a safe floor player sitting on your bench. You need someone that's going to come in. Maybe
No,
2 or 3 games a year, and maybe like has the upside to put together a really good performance. One side note is that we actually don't have everybody with a solidified QB2 yet. Cockrell, I know we haven't talked about him in quite some time. He actually still has not gotten his quarterback 2, although he did pick up Avery Johnson in the 4th round, the junior quarterback out of Kansas State.
yeah, there's a guy that I'm eyeing for my QB3 that I wouldn't be surprised if he were to snag for his QB2, because I'm not going to get name names so I don't get sniped or anything. But I think this guy, if he's sitting for my QB3, I'm really happy enough to where he might work his way up to my QB2.
Okay. Yeah, that'll be like a good like pickup for sure. That does end up happening, as we're starting to see some more defenses like flying off the board. Clemson, Florida, and
Mhm.
Georgia. Seeing some more like defenses. I did think about going defense because I didn't really love the options on the board, but we sort of panic as interesting enough. Akron's defense is the highest ADP available at 161, which I think to be very fascinating as a side note, according to FanTrack, of course.
Yeah, I think Fantrax has more to do with their ADP when it comes to kickers and defenses. And I know you touched on trying to just monitor the schedule when it comes to kickers, but that's really my mentality when it comes to defenses. I might pick up a defense and I might just keep 2 defenses all year long. Top 5 defense that I draft, if I can pick one up, and then I'll just take a flyer on a great matchup week in and week out.
Yeah, I definitely like understand that resentment. There's certainly a defense I would love to have that I don't think has been taken yet, but we don't want to name names, just in case someone ends up sniping me. But I do think, and I talked about it over on like college football seasons show during the depths of the off season. But I think has the potential to like really be a top 5 defense this year. That we might go with if like this next round. I don't see like any like skill position players that I don't particularly like love too deeply.
Yeah, it sounds like you and I both have the same strategy since we're both lacking a defense here. Yeah, and not to name names either, but there are 2 defenses that I'm eyeing and surprised that they haven't been taken yet.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised as well. As we have our I think our first team
Wow.
in our fantasy league that has a 3rd quarterback taken. as Fernando Mendoza goes to college football with Sam. And then Miller Moss was taken in the 12th round. So Cockrell of walk-on red shirts finally has a QB2 on his squad, which I do like Miller Moss. We'll see if he captures that.
Neither one of those guys.
Mm-hmm.
Neither one of those guys was who I was thinking of. However, I know Sam is, again, really high on Indiana this year and really high on Mendoza. There he is picking up the actual starting kicker for Michigan. But Mendoza is an improvement on what they had at quarterback last year. And once again, their starting quarterback is I'm blanking on his name, but I believe he played partially hurt. And so I know Mendoza will be an improvement there. And then moving to Cockrell's pick with Miller Moss, I mean, a Jeff Brom quarterback is a great option to have when it comes to fantasy football. And I believe that Miller Moss is the best quarterback that Jeff Brom has had in his tenure between Purdue and Louisville. So I think, the sky's the ceiling for him there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I definitely hear where you're coming from there. And just getting the actual starting kicker instead of someone who's going to be your essentially the backup kicker in the 10th round is essentially wasting a 10th round pick. That's not the worst thing in the world. There's worse picks that you can miss, but that's the auto draft gods doing you a little dirty there. It is what it is.
Yeah,
definitely.
And now as I get closer and closer to my pick here, I'm really crossing my fingers, praying that neither of these guys take the defense that I'm eyeing. Because that's where it gets really stressful. Is like you get 2 or 3 picks away from your pick, and you're like, all right, this is the guy that I want to zero in on, and then that's when you get sniped.
Yeah, and listen,
it's kind of like thinking about a perfect game.
He was here in the stream earlier tonight. I don't know if he's still in here or not, but he does not have a defense yet. He has every other position covered. In need of a starting kicker and a starting defense though. So definitely something to monitor. This could be a defense here, not to increase your blood pressure by any means, but that's something that absolutely can happen.
Yeah, thankfully, I've got just enough defenses. My options are open. That if everybody leading up to me were to take a defense, I think I'd be all right. It's all about being able to adapt and conquer when it comes to being a national champion.
Yeah, I mean that's that's a big thing. In being quintessentially what it feels like really the SEC of this fantasy league. There's certainly there's no casuals in this league. So it's I'm very excited to be a part of it, especially as someone that's really only taken covering college football seriously and devoting some serious time to it since February really is when we started to pick back up on Twitter and to be a part of this definitely a great opportunity. Listen, are we going to finish 2-10? Maybe we will, but the beautiful thing about me is I'm going to be talking some crap the entire time. And if I win, I will let you know about it.
Oh, absolutely. Shout it from the rooftops. And sometimes, the goal isn't always a national champion. There are only a select, when it comes to actual CFB programs, there are only a select group of programs who can realistically be in the chase year in and year out. But others, whether it means setting your bar a little bit lower, they've got their goals, and sometimes it's about the friends you make along the way.
Yeah, nothing wrong with going 7-5 and making the the Liberty Bowl, as long as you have some some memorable moments. Which that's the beautiful thing of what I love about college football, man. It creates some some wonderful memes per se, whether it be the like the Pop-Tarts mascot, really one of the more notable mascots that just came into existence like a couple of years ago, or whether we see some incredible mishaps like how Miami should have kneeled the ball against Georgia Tech in the 2023 season, and they end up finding a way to fumble the ball, giving it back to Georgia Tech, and then Georgia Tech marches down the field with less than a minute left and winning the game. It creates some really incredible moments, and there really is no such thing as like a bad college football game to watch. There's either like like your good classic or your like your sicko level games. Like I remember
there might be bad level of college football, but those are dedicated to the sickos and the diehards.
Yeah, like I know like one game that I don't think like many casuals are gonna sit down and watch, but I know guys that really have a sickness for the thickness that is college football. We're gonna be locked into like UMass and Temple, for example, week number 1. Especially with how the 3:30 slate is going to be. I'm actually thoroughly disappointed with the 3:30 slate in week 1. That's going to be a fun one to tune into. Well, like our friend the commish is locking in on his pick. Appreciate everybody coming through on the stream so far tonight. Make sure you haven't done so already. Make sure you hit that like button, and if you love what you see, make sure you hit that subscribe button as well. As we're gonna see what Austin rolls with in terms of the what defense he goes with, because I know you're eyeing a defense, and a defense was in fact not picked up by CFB Pudge, so he's gonna wait a little bit longer to pick up his starting defense. But shoot though, if you don't pick up the defense that I want, and I'm not gonna name any names or anything, that seems like Iowa's defense.
That's not what you were going after.
No, it was not what I was going after. So I'm gonna wait until Updog makes his pick to say what I want to say defensively, because I know TNT is not going to pick up a defense because he's on auto pick. I don't know what Jake Crane is going to do, but he probably won't get a defense either because he just picked up a defense in the 9th round. I don't see him being the type of guy to pick up a defense. But yeah, there's a defense that I have.
Well, Jake picked up Alabama's defense, so
yeah, I know he's like certainly high on Alabama over on the Crane and Company show on YouTube. But man, no.
I believe they're actually doing their shout out to Crane and Co. I believe they're doing their Alabama preview on their schedule tomorrow. So anybody tuning in tonight, be sure to check them out tomorrow.
Hang on, what is it?
But yeah, I was between two defenses here. I'm curious to see who you're going to pick up. But after looking at Iowa's schedule, I believe that they have a very manageable schedule, especially when it comes to their defense, to where, Phil Parker, he might be the best defensive coordinator in college football. I know other people have their opinion, but Phil Parker, in my opinion, is the number 1 defensive coordinator in college football. And so I'm not going to pass up an Iowa defense.
Oh no, I mean, I definitely hear you on that one. Definitely get that feeling. I think what I am gonna do is, now that I figure out what I want to do, if I'm gonna go with Armerian Miller over in Colorado. Either you're going to see an experienced Cater Soller win the quarterback job, or you're going to see the very talented true freshman in Julian Lewis win that quarterback job. Either way, I feel comfortable. And I like Armerian Miller for sure. But then the defense that I want to actually grab, I think is going to be a top 5 defense this year, because they were a top 25 defense last year, and they're leading the country in terms of returning production on the defensive side of the ball. I'm going to go with Missouri here. Going with that Missouri defense. Very happy to bring him in as a 13th round pick, and really building that hard nose, like physical culture here at Jake State University.
Yeah, I know. I don't have it pulled up, but I believe that Missouri, specifically in college fantasy football, finished with a top tier defense last year. And I know I touched on Iowa's schedule, but Missouri also has another very favorable schedule this year. So you could be in luck with that.
Yeah, and I absolutely agree. I think there's only one other team in the SEC that does have an easier schedule than Missouri. It is a team that we saw picked up already, and that's Tennessee. You really sit down and look at Tennessee's schedule. I know the SEC is always seen as a grind, but you look at their SEC slate specifically. Half of their games are going up against who I think is going to be in that bottom four from power rankings perspective in the SEC. Because they do play like Vanderbilt, obviously. That is a rivalry game for Tennessee. But then they also play Kentucky, Arkansas, and Mississippi State. They play all those teams. So I really love Tennessee's schedule. And even though they had all the Nico drama in the offseason during the spring transfer portal window, at the same time, I really don't think Tennessee is going to fall out all that much. I still see that as a top 25 caliber team this year.
I'm undecided about how high I would want to rank Tennessee entering the season, knowing, like you touched on, with losing Nico. But I also know that they lost several studs on their defense and defensive line specifically. And I was actually just talking to somebody today just about, in my opinion, I see 4 to 5 losable games on their schedule to where a good season would be 9-3, but that's not the playoff caliber that they've had in the past. I'm going to lock in my QB3 right here.
Yeah, and I mean, like Tennessee, like they certainly have like a lower floor. Now that they are trying to break in a new quarterback, like a little bit later in the offseason. I know they brought in Joey Aguilar. I'm guess I'm a little bit higher on Tennessee. I do see them as a 9-3 squad, and seeing them at least still being competitive in terms of making at least being in that college football playoff conversation. Not because I think they're going to be one of the better teams in the SEC. I do think that they are going to be in the bottom half in terms of caliber of team compared to the SEC. But at the same token, though, I do see, because their schedule is navigable, I do think that at least Tennessee will be a part of that conversation. I think there is some room there. And getting that drama out of the locker room, getting Nico out of that Tennessee program, I think that's going to help in the long term, even though it might be a little bit of a bumpy ride initially. But their non-conference schedule in their first few weeks at least allows them to figure things out before they get into really the meat of SEC play.
Yeah, I would say that they're probably a strong tier 2 team. I wouldn't bump them down too low to tier 3. But I just don't think that they're set up this year to compete for the SEC.
Yeah, and that's definitely fair. I don't necessarily see them as the like the type of team that's going to come out and like win the SEC. I think that's a unrealistic expectation going into this year. But at the very least, I think they'll be somewhat in the mix. Because I do think their schedule is very favorable, particularly once you get into SEC play, playing, in my opinion, what I believe is going to be like your 4 worst teams in the conference, playing all of them in an 8-game schedule. So with that being half of your slate, there's some runway. So I'm not jumping off of Tennessee, but I know they're not as good as maybe what we thought, knowing that Nico is coming back and now breaking in a new quarterback. But I don't think the fall off is going to be terrible either. I think last year they were a 10-2 regular season.
Yeah, 10-2 Yes, they were 10-2, because I don't believe there was a 9-3 team that got in. And another team that we could pivot to as well and talk about is Oklahoma, and that Tennessee-Oklahoma matchup after how it went last year, being in Knoxville this year. I think that is the biggest game on Tennessee's schedule, because I don't see them being able to knock off Alabama again or beating Georgia, even though that game's at home. And so Oklahoma is a very, very important game for Tennessee to win.
Yeah, I certainly hear you. And I think Oklahoma, touching up on them, I think they're going to be one of the most important a team that I think is going to be the most improved. Thinking about what they did in the transfer portal, really one of the biggest winners in the offseason. When you're thinking about getting not only the play caller from Washington State over to help try to jumpstart this offense, because that was a major issue with Oklahoma in 2024, but you also get their quarterback in John Mateer, who we know was lighted up at Washington State, a little low-key quarterback factory out there in Pullman, Washington. But then not only bringing in John Mateer, but you're also bringing in Jaden Ott, who is a proud representative of Jake State University with that 7th-round pick. I think you're going to have one of the more dynamic backfields in the SEC, pairing up John Mateer and Jaden Ott, the California transfer. So I think offensively they're going to be more dynamic. And plus, we know defensively, like Brent Venables being one of the premier defensive minds in college football. So we know that defense is going to be, a solid group as well. I think Oklahoma is going to be probably one of the more improved teams in all of the college football, at least in the SEC.
Yeah, and what stinks for them about being in the SEC is, they could be a really, really great team where in years past, just because of the schedule of being in the Big 12, they could have gone, 11-1, but because they're in the SEC now, even being a great team, they could go 7-5. And so for me, it's about Mateer and Ott. How will they translate at the next level?
Oh yeah, 100%. And you absolutely hit it on the head with Oklahoma. They could be an improved team, and I mean they could still have really a similar record. Where I do have the 4 for them at 6-6, but at the same time, I still think this is a really good team. I have Oklahoma power rated going into this year as a top 15 team in the country. So yes, I do have the 4 where like they could be like a 6-6 team like last year, but it's not because they're a bad team. It's just, it's a tough schedule like many of the other teams in the SEC. And you could really say the same thing about Florida too. I think Florida, for me, from like a power rating perspective, I could see Florida borderline being in the top 10, but I mean, it's been documented all offseason that schedule for Florida is just brutal, man. This is absolutely brutal.
Oh yeah. They would have to go 9-3 for a successful year, but I think even at 9-3, they could be in the conversation for a bubble team for the playoff. And I think a lot of people would have respect for them as a 9-3 playoff team, knowing their schedule.
Yeah, and I absolutely, the thing I really dislike is I really dislike the the brain dead tape of you are what the record says you are, and leaving a team out just because they have a lesser record. Now, I do believe that at some point the losses should matter because even though last year I think Alabama on a neutral site would have been favored over an SMU. I believe that SMU should have gone in over Alabama, and the committee did make the right call because they were a more deserving team, and they proved it on the field more of an Alabama. But in Florida's case, yes, they could lose a quarter of their games, but their schedule is going to be harder than what Alabama's was last year. Like you mentioned, I would say that Florida should absolutely be a part of that conversation if they do find a way to finish 9-3. And I think there's an upside in a world where I think the ceiling could be even a little bit higher for them. as we go ahead and take a look at what I want to do. Oh, let's see. We got three
Yes.
receivers.
Yeah, feeding off of that, I believe that you can lose a handful of games as long as you're taking care of the teams that you should take care of. You can go, 2-3 or 500 against the tougher teams on your schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I think the argument for Alabama is a little bit weaker, because when you look at, the metrics and the blue chip ratio for Alabama, there was no excuse for why they should have lost to a team like Oklahoma or a team like Vanderbilt. And so even beating Georgia, it just, in my opinion, it didn't compensate for that.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely hear you on that. Like, it is one thing to lose 3 games, but if you're close losses, okay, you have a little bit more of a leg to stand on. But I mean, one of those losses was literally a blowout to a 6-7 football team in Oklahoma, who would go on and lose to Navy in the bowl game. So I mean,
Hey, but
technically,
that
if
was
you
a
want
good
to go
Navy
off
team,
defensive
though.
property, Navy is better than Alabama last year, which shoot, I need to figure out what do I want to do though in terms of my second pick. I probably should have waited a tad bit before I figured that out, which is a rookie move by yours truly. Man, do I want to go tight end here?
Hudson was a solid pick there, and that's where we got 5
You know what?
picks
I'm going
left.
Dorian
That's where I
Fleming
was
here.
trying my kicker.
Yeah. I want to wait on kicker just a little bit longer. I'm gonna go with Dorian Fleming here, because I think what's gonna happen is we are gonna see a true freshman start at Maryland in Malik Washington, and I do have concerns about their offensive line. So, inexperienced quarterback, a shaky offensive line. I think that we could see a world where Fleming could be that kind of security blanket for the true freshman as he tries to adjust to life in college football. So that's we'll see if that works out for me, or if I drop him by week 2. But
Now, this is where you really have to get in your bag and know your second and third tier of players in college football.
yeah, absolutely. I really feel like we are in fact kind of going deep in the chamber. I need to get quarterbacks. That's really what we're starting to get to that point, huh?
Yeah, that's where I can't. That's where I can't blame a couple of these guys for just putting their remaining picks on auto draft, because I'm sitting here, my wheels are spinning, trying to figure out who I want to draft, and my pick might as well be as good as what the computer could pick for me.
Yeah, I hear you on that one. Not like.
Do I have?
What are we doing here with some of these selections?
That's right, yeah.
Am I gonna have to go depth chart searching?
So what I'm trying to do on the fly is remember who's been taken where, because I see a name, and that's a hard part with the transfer portal is I see a name with a guy and I recognize him, but it could be because I recognized him and am familiar with him at his previous stop.
Yeah, no kidding. See now, well, got me.
You know what? I'm gonna go. Might have gotten me jitters but I had to go with the guy good to me last year with Skylar Bell. And I'm seeing picks just fly by now.
All right. So I feel better about my my quarterback choices because I just realized I had something filled in for like find player. So I was like, man, my quarterback pickings are so little. What is going on? I just realized I had them on there. Like, okay, we feel a lot better. I still need to figure out my quarterbacks, but at least we got something to work off of.
You got to double check that filter there.
Yeah, I did not realize that at all. But you know what? We're here. We've realized our mistakes, and now we're ready to move forward with like the rest of our draft. Like we're ready to be dangerous again.
We're back in it, boys.
Like somebody send the word out. Is this the claims department? I like to make one.
Let's see. There's a guy I was eyeing, and now he must have already been taken. I'll say his name just in case he was, but let me see. It's crazy trying to talk and draft at the same time. I forget some of these guys that even in the first round, I forgot some of these guys that were taken and just slipped past me.
Yeah, no kidding. Like it does genuinely feel like we got some cracks, like some people falling into cracks. We do have like a visitor out of Rhythm Fantasy Sports. Appreciate you guys coming on the live stream tonight as we partake in a 20-round fantasy draft with not only myself and the commish headgear insights, but also 12 other college football content creators as well. There's a lot of ball knowers here, and really seeing people shine like in this nitty gritty as we get into this last quarter of the draft.
Yeah, thanks for hanging out with us on this Sunday evening. Even when things are slowing down a little bit, action is slowing down. When you're making your 16th round pick in a college fantasy football draft.
No kidding. That's for sure.
He would be. Yeah, I know I've talked about picking guys who I'm familiar with because of how they were good to me last year. But I really value a known commodity.
Yeah, I mean, like definitely like understandable for sure. Is we actually starting to see some that's because they're auto picks. That's what I'm about to say. Like, man, we know what we're doing here in the 16th round. No hesitation. No hesitation at all there whatsoever. Yeah, I definitely need to make sure I get myself some quarterbacks. Realizing that, and this is the first time I've been in a 2-quarterback league. To be honest with you,
you had a 2-quarterback league, especially when you have 14 players and 14 ball knowers here. Is your quarterback pickings, once it becomes your 3rd and 4th quarterback, are really, really slim.
Yeah,
really
although
on your ball game.
Yeah, although I will say, like it's definitely nice, being in in like a college football league where like it feels like even we get into like the 30s or 40s in terms of like quarterback rankings. Seeing someone like seeing some really quality names here, like even in the back end, like someone that would feel pretty comfortable with like trotting out on any given Saturday.
Yeah. It's I'm afraid he might be the starter this year, but I like Fegan. We're at Illinois. I always got to trust Brett Bielema. He's got a program there.
Yeah. Yeah. So Chase Roberts in the 13th round. We got a comment like for I guess out of Ribbon Fantasy Sports once again with Chase Roberts. I guess no, he wasn't selected in
Did I
the
miss him
13th
in the
round. I don't know
13th?
what round he's looking for, but yeah, I guess and then also looking to the quarterback at Old Dominion, which I think if I'm not mistaken, he was taken pretty highly by CF Budge when he was here. Going with a third round select. As I'm actually going to go with my quarterback free, someone that I think can really light things up in the ACC and have a bounce back year as well. I'm going to go with Carson Beck here, man. I'm high on the Hurricanes this year. It might be I might be on island for this one. Man, I just love Carson Beck and what he did in 2023. This time last year, we were talking about him as potential first round pick. Things didn't really work out for him as much as he would have hoped. But he was someone that was playing some really good football before he had got hurt in the SEC championship. But he is healthy, and he's playing against lighter competition overall too. So just like all of those things in mind, I do think that we're going to see like a quality year. And then I do eventually need to get another quarterback, but I'm going to worry about that at a later time because I want to see what my wide receiver options are. And
I wonder.
What do I want to do with receiver? Let's see, 4-9, 4. I think what I want to do. I'm going to take a little flyer.
Oh.
I don't know if it's going to work out for me, but I think I'm going to take a flyer on Chase Hendricks in the 17th round. I think that's the move.
Yeah. I was looking for Chase Roberts here. I didn't see if he got drafted, so somebody could drop a comment and let me know if I'm overlooking him. Because I would hate to draft a running back from Illinois if he's not the starting back.
Yeah, for sure. Because I like you mentioned something about Chase Robertson going in the 13th round. I don't know if that was like just in like his mocks or what. Because I know I don't see a Chase Robertson in the 13th round. I don't know if he's even been drafted, but there's been a ton of guys that have been picked here tonight. All right. I'm in need of a kicker. Six receivers.
Yeah.
See,
You
Austin,
mentioned Quebec.
look
Sorry,
what
I
you
was
got me
looking.
doing. You got me out here.
I was just saying that you mentioned you picked up Carson Beck over at Miami, and Miami is one of those teams to where I've seen them be in people's dark horse playoff teams or a total bust team or relatively bust team at it as an 8-5 team. And I just don't know how to rate them going into 2025. I wanted to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so they certainly are one of the more I don't know if controversial is the right word. Polarizing. I think they're one of the more polarizing
Mm.
teams in 2025. Um, so, but for me, what I think about for Miami is I'm in the camp of I think they're going to have a really successful season this year, and I think a big reason for that is I am a believer in Carson Beck, and I think we see more of the 23 version of him than what we saw really in the first half of last year. I do also expect the defense to take a step forward. I mean, they were, I believe, outside the top 70 in points allowed. With the amount of talent that's on that roster, I do expect them to be better defensively. And after the Notre Dame game, I think you look at every single game that they have, Miami should be a favorite in every one of those games. So I actually think Miami could go undefeated this year. And I genuinely believe that. That is probably one of the more hotter takes that I have. Miami going and beating Notre Dame in week one in that Sunday night matchup down in Miami because they'll have that home field rocking. And that's another thing about Miami. We usually clown on them for maybe their fan base not being super involved, but when Miami is really good, they do in fact show up to their games. And it's a rocking house, even though it is a glorified NFL stadium.
Yeah, I mean, trying to dial in my here. Yeah. When it comes to Notre Dame versus Miami, the deciding factor for me is you have an experienced quarterback in Carson Beck, even though he's at his first year in his school, compared to a guy like CJ Star who's never started a game. And not only that, but he's the away quarterback. So I think Miami is going to improve defensively. They're going to regress a little bit on offense, but how can you not when you look at their offense last year? But I think because of how they're going to improve defensively, I think they improve overall. The hardest part for me is just knowing who their head coach is and how many in-game fumbles the ball has had. So it'll be hard to see what they'll be this year.
Yeah, and I mean, I definitely don't want to deny that. I mean, last year's offense was definitely a historically good offense, led under by Cam Ward, and I'm not at all suggesting that Carson Beck in his offense is going to have as productive a season as Cam Ward. Please understand, for those watching tonight, that I am not making that suggestion at all. But I do believe that Carson Beck. There was this big shift after last season where people like to clown on Carson Beck and be down on Carson Beck because of really half of a season last year. It wasn't even a full body of work. And now people are swinging in the other direction where a lot of people are down on Carson Beck. I'm one that stays in the middle, and I see the talent from 2023 that made him a first round pick or would have been a hypothetical first round pick, and he's going to be playing in lesser competition. I mean, some of the teams in the ACC would not be able to compete in the SEC. So I think Carson Beck is going to be able to go into Miami and maybe not put up the same numbers of Cam Ward, but put up some really good numbers still. And you end up not seeing as much of a drop off as maybe what some folks would be expecting.
No, that makes a lot of sense. and I could see that happening. It's just there are a lot of universes that I could see happening for Miami. It's just which one comes to fruition.
Yeah, and I know another popular thing to say about Miami is particularly their head coach and Mario Cristobal, in terms of Cristobal, not being an effective game manager consistently, as well as like underperforming like expectations in spite of the talent that he has. And I mean, I understand that he hasn't um when he got to Miami, the cupboard is not completely bare, but he wasn't walking into an ideal situation when he took over the Miami job. And year
That's
over
fair.
year,
Yeah.
his team has gotten better. And similar things were said about Ryan Day last year, where the consensus on Ryan Day is that he's hasn't been able to win the big game, and take his team to the promised land that is winning a national championship. I like that Celtic pick, by the way. But just because you haven't done something doesn't mean you can't. And I genuinely believe
Exactly.
this is the year where we see like maybe Mario Cristobal take that next step, like a Ryan Day has as a head coach, and see this Miami team, I think, make the playoff, especially now that we're in a 12-team playoff where you are generally going to have a bigger, what you would like to call margin of error in terms of making the playoff. Now, you could lose a couple of games as long as they're not egregious losses. You'll still be there in the conversation. And yeah, Miami did finish the year bad, losing 3 of their last 4, including the bowl game against Iowa State. But they were very much in this conversation, and for most of the year, they looked like the lock to make a 12-team playoff.
Yeah. Yeah, it was just another example of one of those teams who losses were just so egregious.
Yeah, and that was definitely a tough one to take, especially late in the year, where you have a like final impressions that you're trying to make, and losing to Syracuse at the end of the regular season, that's one that you got to have when you're trying to make the playoff. And it really opened the door for Clemson. I mean, Clemson was on the outside looking in, and they were going to need to win the ACC just to get into the playoff. They were not making it as an at-large. And so because Miami had that shocking loss to Syracuse, they were able to backdoor their way in, and they end up winning the ACC and getting an automatic bid because of that.
Yeah, that Miami loss at Syracuse might be one of the most overlooked games from rivalry week this past year because of the impact that it had on Clemson being able to go to the conference championship game and then winning that and then making their way into the playoff. Like, that game might have had one of the biggest impacts on the college football landscape of any game in rivalry weekend.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because not only did it take like Miami out of the at-large conversation, not because they had 2 losses, but they were a team that did not finish strong, and I think that's something that the committee does really emphasize. Is just finishing on a high note in general. Yeah, that Syracuse loss, but it also, like I said, like Clemson being able to backdoor their way into the ACC championship and then winning at what you call winning in the ACC against SMU, and they were able to backdoor their way into the playoff that way. It definitely created some seismic changes for sure.
And then I think that game also possibly single-handedly led to the conversation between the Alabama versus SMU debate, and is now, blossomed into the playoff format discussions that we've seen the conferences have and the CFP have during this offseason. And so when I was thinking about, the biggest moments in rivalry weekend, that game never crossed my mind. However, that might have been the most impactful game.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Which for the record, I do think that the committee did make the correct decision in picking SMU over Alabama. I genuinely do believe that. I don't know if I love that pick, but that's the one that we're going with. And then I'm gonna go Common Drones. I was trying to figure out what my second pick was gonna be, but yeah,
Ooh,
I know it created that debate, and I'm glad that the committee. I think they had the right 12 teams in. I genuinely do.
I do
I
too.
know
I do
SMU
too.
getting blown out against Penn State. It did not. It didn't look great from an optics perspective. Maybe Alabama would have been more competitive, but then Alabama had a chance to prove themselves and prove that they did belong because they did all this complaining after they were basically the last team out, but then lost to Michigan. And Michigan, they forgot that the forward pass was invented in that bowl game, and they still lost.
Yeah. And I think if the committee had put Alabama into the playoff over SMU, then I think that would have opened the door for a bigger precedent and a bigger dilemma than leaving Alabama out. And I
Yeah,
still am under the impression that instead of the conversation being Alabama versus SMU, the conversation should have been Alabama versus Indiana, because SMU was able to have a better strength of schedule, and that's where you have more quality wins and losses than Indiana did.
yeah. I mean, I understand that. Which I mean, I'm glad that like SMU did get in over Alabama. Because think about what would have happened if Alabama was picked over SMU after Alabama sat at home. They did not play in the SEC championship, matter of fact.
Mm-hmm.
But then SMU, they lost in a heartbreaker. It's not like they were blown out in the ACC championship. They lost. They had a close loss against Clemson in the ACC title game. And if SMU was left out because of that, I think you really would have had to question, really the value of conference championship weekend. If there is a true scenario where we could play in the conference championship game, we would have been better off staying at home than
Mm-hmm.
actually competing for our conference title.
You
That
can't
would have
punish a
been a
team
very
for playing
dangerous
another
precedent
game.
for sure.
Exactly. It's like we saw teams get that advantage during the BCS era. Thankfully, I don't think, and during the 14 playoff. But when you expand the playoff, you can't set that precedent.
Yeah, especially for a 12 team playoff, and it would really hammer home. I know we're starting to get into like a super conference era, like particularly with the SEC and the Big Ten, starting to create a bigger gap in terms of resources in your average ACC or your average like Big 12 team. If you're an 11-1 team in the ACC, or if you're an 11-1 team in the Big 12 in the regular season, and you still get left out, that would have also created some equally dangerous conversations to where we do see like a true split between the rest of college football and the Big Ten and the SEC because of that.
Oh, absolutely. And what I think people don't think about is that I think it's Winsipedia is their page over on X, does the daily poll of as they look back through history, and, allows other users to vote on who should have been the national championship each given year. When people are making that vote, they don't think about, oh, this team was 11-1, but who do they win and lose to versus a team that was 12-0, who might have played a bunch of nobodies yet was undefeated that year and has a claim to a national championship. Year in and year out, we have this conversation of strength of schedule, but when we look back 4 years ago, when people forget about each team's schedule, nobody cares about strength of schedule.
Yeah, when we look back, like from a retrospective position, I definitely agree. I remember 2 years ago when we were debating, um, I guess more in like the G5 sphere in terms of who deserved to be the highest ranked Group of Five team and go to a New Year's Six bowl. It
Mhm.
was between an undefeated Liberty team and I
Liberty.
believe it was
Yeah.
a two-loss SMU squad that I personally thought probably would have been favored on a neutral site against Liberty. But because they did have those two losses, Liberty did end up getting a nod. I think in retrospect, not knowing the context, Liberty was the right call. And again, if you can run the table and go undefeated, I don't care what your strength of schedule is, that is incredibly hard to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. That definitely says something about the type of team that you have.
Yeah. But at the same time, with SMU's like last year in the American, like SMU definitely had a genuine argument um, to be that Group of Five
Mm.
representative for a New Year's Six bowl back in 2023. But looking in retrospect, uh, we get like 5, 10, 15 years from now, outside the maybe the Liberty and the SMU fan bases, people aren't going to realize the context and you know don't see any controversy with Liberty getting in over an SMU for a New Year's Six bowl.
Yeah. I think when you talk about a smaller school having a undefeated schedule, I think the only team that people might remember is UCF back in, what was that, 2017, 2018.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, like, I have to agree with you on that. So we're wrapping up to the final round of here, the draft. I'm just curious, give me your overall thoughts with your team, and if your thoughts with this being your first college fantasy football draft.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think the biggest adjustment for me, like going from the professional ranks, like going down to college football for fantasy purposes, it's really fascinating. I think the biggest adjustment for me is like trying to work around the buys because in the NFL you only have one
Mm,
bye week. But in college, you have teams that have two. And if you're a team that plays in week 0, you have free buys during the season. So trying to navigate all those so that you have adequate availability regardless of what week it is in the season, that was pretty tough for me to navigate. I think we'll be fine. You we truly don't know when until the games have actually been played. But I mean, in the beauty of the fall camp world, I think my team is gonna go undefeated.
there we go.
But honestly, we have to see. Um, I have no idea what to expect. I do know I need to quickly find a kicker because I just realized that somebody, freaking Jake from Crane and Company, took the kicker I was going for. So now I got to scour ourlads.com trying to figure out who starting kickers are going to be. And I'm not happy.
Yeah, I'm really deciding who I want to take on a flyer with my final pick. But I think this is always a fun thing to do to start off the season. I'm really excited to get this going with all of these other guys. I'm really excited to make this, include this in my content each week, and excited for a great year here.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm certainly excited to. I'm just excited to get the season going. Um, because we are getting to a point where I'm just getting. He took the kicker I was going for, freaking Garrett.
Oh man.
Stop.
I'm going to tell you though, it's going to be one of these kickers that flies under the radar. Um, I do see a couple good kickers still on the board. I don't think I'm going to take them. I don't need a kicker though.
I know. I just finished doing some research. Like,
a
all
lot
right,
of-
this is my guy. I wasn't expecting people to take multiple kickers. Like, what are we doing here, fellas? Oh my goodness! Now I gotta let me figure out who I want to go with.
You know what? I'm going to do this. I'm going to do the handcuff and take both of the running backs competing for the job over at Memphis since I didn't do my homework. So always a reminder to do your homework before drafts.
Do your homework.
But
yeah, because I would like this LSU kicker right here because I do like their offense, but like if this guy is like he's supposed to be he's listed as the third string kicker for LSU. All right.
yeah, I saw Press Box After Dark. They just drafted the kicker in the 20th round.
Yeah, I mean, Press Box and I, great minds think alike. Waiting until 20th round to get a kicker. I think I have my guy. I'm worried about what college football season. Well, no, I'm not because he just picked up a kicker. So I'm should be good.
Yeah.
The only person I have left.
Yeah, you should be good there. You shouldn't be sniped unless the auto draft for some people might just auto draft a kicker.
Yeah,
I'll be honest, since I don't think anybody but you is going to draft a kicker. I'm surprised that Jaden Fielding from Ohio State hasn't been drafted yet.
He's been a great kicker. Yeah, so it's funny you say that. He may or may not be in the consideration. I know Updog has not taken a kicker yet, so that's the only person that I'm worried about. Because TNT has a kicker, and then Jake Crane from Crane and Company, he's got 3 kickers on the roster. Just diabolical work over there.
I think that might have been a little bit of the auto draft picking for him as time ran out. But oh wow, Great House! I can't believe that he was still available there.
Oh yeah, for sure. Which I think Notre Dame's passing game, I think it is going to be better than what we've seen from last year. Just because I love Riley Leonard, but Riley Leonard might not be as good of a passer as maybe what we see from CJ Carr, which I'm pretty high on. I watched him during spring game. I think CJ Carr is going to be a stud.
Yeah, he should definitely elevate the passing game there. And I think that Leonard was a better running quarterback than he was a passing quarterback. So that should be great news for CFB season there with that pick with Great House.
Mm-hmm. All right. So we have gone. Oh my goodness, how many picks are we in? I gotta do some math on good old fashioned calculator. We have accomplished 280 picks here tonight. We have made it through. Since we are getting towards the to the back end. How are you feeling about your team this year, man? I don't think I ever asked you. How you feeling about your fantasy team like going into the college football season?
I can't hate it. I see strengths in just about every position and every player. Obviously, there's a reason why I drafted every player. But once, until I get to, 15th, 16th round, I could see just about every player starting week in and week out for me. So safe to say that it's either going to be boom or bust. I'm either going to win the championship this year, or the guys that I think I know are just going to drop duds, and I'll be living through the waiver wire.
Yeah. So just for the record, we are not in fact going for the optimism of fall camp where we wholeheartedly think we're going 12-0 and this is our year. It's it's either like boom or bust.
Every year I say I'm going to go undefeated, and every year I have failed to go undefeated. So
Yeah, it's just hard to do it in fantasy football. Some of the randomness involved is Gio Lopez is the 20th round selection.
ooh,
That's an interesting
yeah,
choice there. But I'm gonna go with my person. I actually was going after the Ohio State kicker. I wanted to wait until Updog made his choice, and he did go after a kicker, but the kicker from Auburn, and that's it. We did
there
it.
you go.
We are closing in on 3 hours of streaming. We have made it through this entire draft right here. Uh, Austin, appreciate you being on the show, and more importantly, putting this league together so that we can have something that we can all enjoy and have some good banter on. Before we end up signing off, any final thoughts, and you want to let the people know where they can find you or your content specifically?
Yeah, for sure. I will say that 2.5 hours for a 20 round 14-man league is pretty good time for that. But thanks for having me on. Really, really appreciate it. Excited for the year moving forward, and for everybody that was tuned in tonight, you can check me out at CFB Headgear on X and YouTube. I'm excited to start posting long form videos on YouTube as we get closer to the season. I'll be putting out videos every Monday, Thursday, and Friday with fantasy related content and college football content as a whole. So you can check me out there.
Hey, and again, really appreciate you not only being a guest in my humble abode, but also really for putting this together and making it possible. The life of a fantasy football commissioner. It's not an easy one, and it's an underappreciated profession. But we appreciate what
appreciate
you're doing. But
Thank
with
you, sir.
that being said, guys, appreciate everyone that has sat through the course of this fantasy football draft in the college football ranks. If you made it through this 3+ hour stream, that means you are a real MVP. And you know what real MVPs do? They hit that like button. Shoot, maybe you're new around here as well. Definitely hit that subscribe button as well. We have some amazing things happening, especially when the actual college football season does come around. Going to do some things that haven't been attempted in a very long time. But with that being said, this is your host Jake of College Football Red Zone signing off with my boy Austin the commish over at Headgear's Insight. Hopefully y'all are all out there having a good one, and good night, everybody.